Call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2025-03 for February 4th, 2025. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Shani. How are you?
Okay.
Good. Shani Shields has joined us by Zoom. Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Any corrections, additions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Consent agenda is approved. Good evening, Mr. Benson.
Good evening. Legislative Bill 2025-01 is here for a public hearing tonight. That bill is an act to amend Chapter 225 of the Wicomico County Code titled Zoning, Part 3 titled Basic Definitions and Interpretations, Article 6 titled Terms Defined, Section 225-25 titled Definitions of Basic Terms, and Part 6 titled Accessory and Principal Uses, Article 18 titled Principal Uses, Section 225-67 titled Table of Permitted Uses Designations, and Part 8 titled Special Standards for Particular Uses, Article 20 titled Uses and Standards Enumerated, Section 225-99 titled Kennels Commercial to amend the zoning requirements for the operation of a kennel. Bill is being put forward to amend the county zoning code to establish standards for kennels in Wicomico County. And at an appropriate point, if the council has questions, Mr. Illuminati from the County Attorney's Office, and I believe Clark Meadows may be here to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. At this time, we open the floor for a public hearing on this legislative bill specifically. That's Legislative Bill 2025-01. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in reference to this legislative bill, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Beebe, Sussex County, Delaware, Laurel, Delaware, actually right on the other side of the state line from Wicomico County near Sharptown area. I'd like to play this right quick just as a reminder. This recording was taken over a football field away from over 60 dogs.
Monday, January 23rd.
So I know that we're dealing with three separate instances that concern my neighborhood anyway. First, the separation distance. As the separation distance of 200 feet is nowhere near enough. My recording was taken from over 3 football fields away from these dogs, 1,170 feet. As I learned the hard way, if you find yourself in front of a zoning hearing, that distance will determine whether you have a voice or not, or you're limited to 3 minutes. If this was your recording, would you want ample time to plead your case? Distance where loud dogs are concerned needs to be at a minimum of 1,000 feet. The second big issue for my neighborhood is we're concerned with the verbiage in the new revised where pertains to grandfathering. We hope sharing our neighborhood's experience would shed light on the need for these changes. We have worked diligently and patiently to take the high road and stay the course in hopes that the system will eventually work for us. That said, the verbiage new kennels concerns us. In our case, we are dealing with an entity that have repeatedly claimed that they are not a kennel in court in order to skirt the law as it currently reads while transporting dogs to another state for actual sale. I've heard Mr. Illuminati mention the phrase non-conforming use, which, as I understand, is legalese the definition of grandfathering. I've also heard him mention sunset clause, which, as I understand, is an option that eliminates grandfathering by giving entities a reasonable period of time to comply with the new laws, while failure to do so allows the county to step in and enforce the ordinance as revised. So in summary, we ask the council to amend the verbiage to specify that if you are not currently a legal commercial kennel under the law as it exists today, you are then defined as a new kennel under the revised version. And if the council does not agree with that approach, we ask that you amend by instituting a sunset clause to give existing kennels a reasonable time to comply, and failure to do so would be result in them shutting down. My neighborhood has had its quality of life affected greatly over the last 3 years. We ask that you return it to us.
Mr. Beebe, if you could, if you would want to, give that to Mr. Illuminati for his reference.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The public comments.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Custer. I live in Sussex County, Laurel address, but I'm just right on the gravel road through my end of my driveway and the state line, much closer to Sharptown, actually. 200 feet is just not enough. I believe if you're stated 200 feet with 66 yards, that's hardly anything. From two people having a normal conversation, you can hear them speaking. You may not hear everything, but you'll hear enough to know what's going on. I think it should be 1,000 feet minimum. That's personal opinion. I do understand why the number 9 is the trigger number, above 9 dogs for a special exemption. All the neighboring counties are, if I remember, in the 5, 6, 7 range. Why does Wicomico want to go above the neighboring counties? That's 2 states neighboring, Sussex County, Delaware, of course, and the Maryland counties. I think it should be in the 5, 6 range, 5 or 6 dogs. I'm equally concerned as Mr. Beebe with the non-conforming to grandfathering, and I believe also if it's not completely meeting the present definition of a kennel in Wicomico County, I know there's multiple things and it has to then it should not be considered a non-conforming entity and grandfathered in. Okay, that's if it is meeting all those things, then possibly the sunset provision for that entity, give them a reasonable amount of time to adhere to the new regulations or the special exemption, if it is presently meeting the complete definition of a kennel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Custer. I said thank you. Any other public comments in reference to this legislative bill?
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. Like the other two gentlemen who just spoke, if you've ever been involved with a kennel or been anywhere around a kennel, 200 feet is definitely inadequate distance. And the way I read this is 200 feet from the dwelling. I think the distance needs to be from the property line. Whatever the distance is decided, it needs to be property line. We're using 10 dogs as the limit. Is that 10 permanent dogs? Or is that 4 permanent dogs that each have 6 puppies? And now you've got 16 dogs on the property. What's the definition? What are we doing here? People who live in the country, in agricultural zones, residential zones, expect a quiet lifestyle. They also, if they live near a farm or a chicken house, understand that tractors are going to run at night, feed trucks are going to run at night, but these aren't every day. And they accept that. But when you've got a kennel and you've got 8, 10, 12 dogs in that kennel, and they're barking outside every day, that's not a quiet, peaceful lifestyle. I think there needs to be some teeth put in this legislation. I think somewhere in the legislation, even if you don't change the number of animals, there should be some type of noise ordinance that even if you have only 8 dogs, if they are creating a public nuisance and creating a loud amount of noise, there should be some type of ordinance to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Nice. That concludes the public comments on legislative bill number 2025-01. Entertain a motion from council to approve legislative bill 2025-01. Second?
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Mr. Illuminati? I know we've had several work sessions on this, so be interesting to see what comments the council might still have in regard to this and some of the comments that were made tonight.
Good evening. So,
If you could just state your name for the record, thank you.
Andrew Illuminati, County Attorney's Office.
Clark Mattis, County Zoning Administrator.
So to cover a couple, for rehash, or for those who may not have been at the last meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed this at council's request, compared to the surrounding counties. So Somerset allows 15 or more dogs and cats with a 200-foot setback for runs. Worcester allows 5 or more dogs and cats with a 200-foot setback for runs. Dorchester is 6 dogs or more requires a special exception. Talbot is the same, and Sussex County allows 5 or more dogs permitted by right with certain setbacks. Wicomico County used to limit the number of animals to 3, and then that was rescinded and the current law was put in place. Based on the first reading, the method moving forward was going to be to have the public input to reevaluate the setback from 200 feet and whether that should be increased or decreased based on public comment, and then to discuss whether or not how to address a sunset provision and whether or not the number 10 was an appropriate number as well. So this overall, there's been no public comment on expanding to the town transition by special exception. Again, operating a kennel in the A1 or the VC will be by special exception. So it's not by right. Somebody will still have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, make an application. There will still be a period for neighbors to comment, for the public to provide input, and for the board to decide whether or not the use of that property is proper. For the gentleman that spoke tonight, there was a special exception hearing. The board denied the special exception. As to the individual who spoke about the noise ordinance is codified in a separate part of the law. The council revisited that when we looked at all the animal regulations for the animal control ordinance. That has been increased to allow citizens to file complaints and not require the animal control officer to witness it. So if an individual sees a dog running at large, can identify it, can send it back to a property, they can go to animal control and file that complaint themselves. So there are methods in place, and then the county attorney's office prosecutes that. If that individual doesn't come to court that day, the difference between when the animal control officer responds to a call and seizes the dog and can testify that the dog is at large, when the animal control officer is not involved and the citizen files the complaint themselves, they don't come to court, then there's no evidence that the county can offer to prove the at-large requirement because the animal control officer did not respond. So that second part, regardless of whether it's animals, chickens, cows, the noise is noise. This is about regulating kennels and how kennels will be regulated. So I believe the understanding was we were going to have the public hearing, receive feedback from council. If that meant working with a specific council member who wanted to see specific language crafted, I'd meet with that council member, any member of council to work on additional language. The Planning Commission did not add a sunset provision, but that is something that can be added. I've worked with staff to discuss, but that can all be introduced after additional consideration and feedback from council.
Shane?
I would like to see the setback increased. I mean, I agree, if you're living out in the county and all you can hear all night long is dogs barking, 200 foot definitely is not enough. I think it needs to be increased.
Recommendation?
1,000,
Is there a motion?
motion.
Second? Second. Motion second. Discussion on 1,000 feet?
I think, I guess for clarity on that, would that be a motion to do that within the A1 or the VC, the Village Conservation, or within, it looks like, I guess we have it as different districts in here, the way that they have it broken up into the commercial, industrial, or the commercial 2. Or does that matter? I'm just for clarity, I guess, or for Mr. Illuminati.
So for the commercial and the C2, the kennel has to be entirely contained within a building. So there are no setback requirements because you could have buildings within a strip mall adjacent to each other, and the vet's office is also operating a kennel. So that's a different consideration than in the A1, the VC, and in the town transition.
So wherever it's referencing 200, Councilman Baker would like to make that 1,000.
Okay.
I think that's the motion.
Take that.
That answers your question. It's a good question. And that would be from the property line.
Okay.
Is that correct, Shane?
Yes.
From the
Yes.
property line.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Yes.
Mr. Illuminati, thank you for working on this. To your knowledge, are there any other kennels in this county that we've received issues from other than the one we're discussing?
So this has been advertised at a planning commission hearing. It's been advertised as with council. No operating kennel has reached out to the county. Staff has received no public comment from any kennel that's in opposition to any of these changes. Specifically as to the one addressed today, they are not a legally operating kennel, but what the goal of this law is to do is, as we talked about last time, the current flaw in the law is that an entity can breed and raise at the property, but if they don't sell, then they're not a kennel. And so, or if they board for free, they're not a kennel. This is to regulate all activity that a dog could possibly do, which is boarding, breeding, training, selling, exhibition, or raising.
So for clarity, this particular facility does not currently fit the definition of a kennel.
Is not a licensed kennel in the county. It went before the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals denied the license for it to operate as a kennel.
So we've not been provided any evidence that they're raising the dogs in Maryland and transferring them to Delaware and selling them? Because that was said, wasn't it? That's what they thought?
That's not a public hearing I heard tonight.
Not tonight. I think that's been said before.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yeah.
From my knowledge, yeah. Any other questions in reference to the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment passes unanimously, 5-0. 6 is, Shani?
Yes, I said yes.
6, thank you, Shani.
Aye.
Keep reminding me, Shani, will you, please? So amendment passes. Any other discussion, any other amendments in reference to the discussions tonight?
That's right.
Yes.
One more question. Just on the, I guess, the sunset provision on a non-conforming use, that's usually not what I'm typically familiar with us doing over here. Is that possible, legal? And, or I guess that's first. Is that even legal?
It is legal.
Okay.
What would the time limit be?
So it has to be a reasonable period of time. Looking back at various cases, it's ranged depending on what the use was. I respectfully think somewhere between 18 years is the lowest I've seen. I have not seen a sunset provision, 18 months, less than 18
You had me
months.
sure there for a
The
minute.
majority has been.
We've been working on this for 2 years.
The majority has been in multi-years, but,
Yeah.
that's up to council to set. This is a little different. Again, depending on the life of a dog would also determine an older dog, once the dog passes, that dog no longer meets that special exception. So it will go down dramatically. So
Hopefully, this will fix the problem. I believe the special exception hearing, which was held in late January of last year, to my knowledge, no changes have been made to the facility since then to improve the noise issue. And at that time, they admitted to having between 40 and 60 dogs. So if we reduce that number to 10 or less, that's organically going to drop the noise just by reducing the number of dogs. So that'll hopefully help one issue. So, thank you.
Josh?
I guess on that issue, then maybe we should set a sunset. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do something too soon for the life of a dog or the investment in capital for them to conform into in this case, the actual kennel. So if you all were up for it, we could do a sunset of 5 years. If that fits. I don't know if that's too little, too late, or not enough, but I'd be in favor if other council members are.
case law is upheld 5 years. As I said, looking at 18 months was on the low end. I didn't find anything. I was recommending 18 months. 3 years to 5 years was more what was typically allowed because it recognizes that the entity's putting capital. Additionally, this is now regulating not just like currently active kennels, but individuals who live in the country who have 11 dogs, who live in the A1. They may have acres and acres of parcels. They may have a large house. Everything's confined within. Their neighbor may be acres away. They are now going to be regulated and will need a special exception because of the numerical limit. So this isn't just about a rogue kennel. This is about anyone who owns more than 10 dogs. If you own more than 10 dogs in any of the other zoning districts, you will not be able to own more than 10 dogs after the sunset provision, because now that is what a kennel is. So it's not just, that's where the consideration needs to be. It's not just about a kennel and its operation, but everyone who owns more than 10 dogs.
I would like to think there's very few people that own 10 or more dogs that aren't raising puppies to sell them.
I agree, and that's a really good point. I think that's where staff discretion really comes into play. So for example, one of the individuals provided an example where you have 4 dogs, but they have a litter. Staff's not gonna come in and start writing citations that day because A, they're gonna have to know.
Right.
And B, there has to be some give and discretion on how to do it. Now, if it's 6 months later, after the litter's raised and the dogs are still hanging around, then that's a problem. Give them a period of time to then sell the dogs with a warning, just like you would with somebody whose grass is too high or has too many untagged vehicles on their property. You have 90 days to conform. If you don't, then you're gonna get issued a citation. So that's where staff's ability to assess the situation, look at it, and make a determination whether it's 11 mature dogs, or 4 dogs and one had a litter, but the people are gonna give them away to the neighbor kids. 2 different scenarios.
But I don't think it's going to come into play either unless it's a nuisance, really.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because again, how does staff know that?
Right. So you're just looking for recourse when it really becomes a nuisance.
Exactly.
So where do you want to, I mean, if you're suggesting that we do a sunset provision, are you talking 3 years, you're talking 5 years? Josh?
Yeah, I was thinking around those, I mean, at least 3 years, just to understand you have actual real lives of dogs that will then have to go elsewhere or that have to find a home. That's not easy to do. You want to do that in a sensitive way. And then also just realizing that it has an effect on the value of the property and the capital investment that's into those. So I don't have strong feelings on this if folks do, but if we did want to do a sunset of, say, 5 years, but I honestly, I would look to you all as and the commission in general if they had any other. I don't know if they've discussed any of that any further. A sunset for the non-conforming.
The Plan Commission did not discuss the sunset. They just wanted to revisit the regulations and left that to council. As that's really a matter that's, the people are going to have more feedback on that, and you answer it to the people. That was their
That-
comment.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll do a motion.
I'll second it.
Wait, I guess for clarity, you want to do 5 years? Is that, or
I
is
thought
that?
you said 3.
I did say 3, but I don't know, unless you all feel.
I like 3.
Okay, my motion's for 3, sunset.
Second it.
We got a motion, second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. The sunset of 3 years passes. Any other? I think the second issue discussed, but the third issue tonight would be the number of dogs, currently 9 dogs, whether or not we leave it at 9 or whether we do reduce that amount. Okay. No discussion on that? Okay, that's good. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the discussion. Entertain all those in favor of we're going to go by roll call. All those in favor of legislative bill 2025-01 as amended will say aye, in favor, or nay, opposed, starting with Councilman Holloway.
Yes.
Councilman Hastings.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Aye.
Vice President Merritt.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I'm sorry, Shannon, there you go. Shannon?
Yes.
Okay. See if we can't leave your picture up there.
You don't want to be up there.
Councilman Shields votes yes, and chair votes yes. So legislative bill number 2025-01 passes unanimously as amended. So, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Hurley.
Good evening, Council President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, at least once a year, we like to do cross-training in the council office. So with your permission, I'll have Mrs. Lynn Ingold present the agenda items this evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everybody. The first item we have is a presentation by Mr. Kevin Karpinski and Mr. Paul Wilbur on the final consent judgment and decree in civil action number 123 CV 03325 MJM titled Wicomico County Branch of NAACP et al. Plaintiffs versus Wicomico County, Maryland et al. Defendants in the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. Okay, so we have Mr. Kevin Karpinski.
Thank you, Ms. Ingold.
Mr. Karpinski is here. He may be on the hall since we have. Mr. Karpinski?
Good evening, Mr. Wilbur. Mr. Karpinski, how are you both?
It's fine. Thank you.
Good. You would just state your names, please, for the record and titles. Thank you very
Paul Wilbur, County Attorney.
Kevin Karpinski. I'm serving as counsel for Wicomico County in connection with the lawsuit filed by the NAACP and other plaintiffs.
Thank you, gentlemen. We certainly will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me start with a little background about the litigation and where we are in connection with it. This case was filed by a number of plaintiffs against Wicomico County, the Board of Education, the State Board of Elections, and the Wicomico County Local Board of Elections, asserting a violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The complaint, sort of stripped to its bare essentials, alleged that the current composition of the council, namely 5 council districts and 2 at-large seats, diluted the voting rights of African Americans within Wicomico County. Plaintiffs also alleged a claim under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 that the current 5-2 composition also violated the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. The purpose of the Voting Rights Act is to ensure that the political process is equally open to all individuals, including minority voters. And to that end, the Supreme Court in Thornburg versus Jingles set forth a number of factors that the court looks at in determining whether there is a viable potential Section 2 violation of the Voting Rights Act. And the first is that the minority group is able to demonstrate that it's sufficiently large and geographically compact to constitute a majority in a single member district, that the minority group is politically cohesive and
Third, that the majority votes sufficiently in a block to enable it, in the absence of special circumstances, to have a minority candidate elected. And then, in addition to those three factors, there are what we commonly call the 9 jingles factors, which get into some historical background, which I'm not going to really get into, other than the point being that it's a very factually intensive analysis of whether there could be a potential violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. In my view, the complaint that was filed alleged, and I emphasize alleged, sufficient facts that the court would not dismiss the case on a preliminary motion, and that would require that the court have a evidentiary hearing on a preliminary motion for a preliminary injunction, and then a trial. And I believe when I met with the council many, many months ago, I sort of outlined what that would look like. My experience, 30 years of practicing law, primarily is in federal court. These cases take a long time to get through the process. They're very expensive. To get through a trial of this kind of case costs millions of dollars. To go ahead and, in addition, under 42 U.S.C. 1988, if the plaintiffs were to prevail on their case, the county is responsible for paying their attorney's fees as well. Rather than head down that path, I think the county took a very prudent course of action, which was to explore whether this could get resolved without expending that type of taxpayer money and potentially exposing the county to a significant amount of taxpayer dollars going to pay attorney's fees for not only the defense but also for the plaintiffs litigating this case. The plaintiffs provided a map to the county. That map was analyzed by the county in-house. The map was basically modified, made some modifications to that map, and the plaintiffs have agreed that the 7 districts that are set forth that were proposed by the county would satisfy their concerns about a possible violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and that would be the map that would be used moving forward if indeed the parties were able to reach a settlement. As the council knows, the parties participated in 2 mediation sessions in Baltimore in front of a federal judge. Subject to the approval of the parties, which the other parties, the plaintiffs and the other defendants in the case, have approved it already. The tentative settlement was that there would be 7 districts to be enacted for the county council, and that the school board lines would mirror the county council lines. That there would be established a human rights advisory committee with a designated staff liaison. Each plaintiff organization would have 1 designated member. Other members would be solicited and appointed by the county council. There would be periodic anti-bias training for the county council staff. And there would be twice a year special council meetings in work sessions with the NAACP, Caucus of African American Leaders, and the Watchmen with One Voice. In addition, the Board of Education's, basically the pool that the Board of Education is a member of, agreed to pay $10,000 in attorney's fees. The proposed settlement has the county paying $125,000 in attorney's fees and cost. And I want to emphasize that it includes the cost, because there are $40,000 of expert fees that have already been incurred. It sort of underscores already how this becomes basically a snowball once this gets really ramped up into litigation. But that would be basically $125,000 from the county in exchange for a complete release. And in terms of the attorney's fees themselves, President Cannon and Council Member Shields participated in some of the negotiations. Let me tell you where we started. We started at $400,000. It got down to $275,000 with Arnold and Porter being, one of the largest firms in the country agreeing to reduce, if not waive, all of their fees. And negotiations continued to get that down to $125,000 for fees and expenses. I think I pointed out in prior meetings that Federalsburg had a similar case filed. They paid substantially more in attorney's fees. Baltimore County has one of these cases pending. It's still in litigation, and it's been stayed pending review of a case before the Supreme Court. But the fees in that case are over $900,000, and they got through one preliminary hearing. So, again, once these cases start getting ramped up, they become very expensive. So those would be the terms of it, and just sort of to recap, the big ones would be this going to 7 districts, establishing this advisory committee, periodic training, and then holding 2 special council meetings, work sessions with the plaintiff groups that were part of the litigation. I'd like to address also, I know the council has received an email regarding some points that I think are important for me to address for your consideration. First of all, when this case began, we did extensive research. We were aware of Arkansas State Conference, NAACP, versus Arkansas Board of Apportionment, which is a case out of the 8th Circuit. We're in the 4th Circuit. But it's a case out of the 8th Circuit that said that there is no private cause of action under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Okay, we were fully aware of the case, and ultimately, I don't believe it's going to hold up unless someone gets a case in front of the Supreme Court. Because while I agree it's not crystal clear whether Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act provides a private cause of action, the overwhelming weight of authority, including Supreme Court authority, has suggested that it does. The Supreme Court has taken cases where they have allowed private litigants to argue Section 2 cases. And in the wake of the Arkansas case, there have been a number of district court cases throughout the country, whether it be Mississippi, Alabama, Pennsylvania, Indiana, have all rejected the analysis in this Arkansas case. So until and unless the case gets to the Supreme Court, which again is a Mr. Wilbur and I have had this conversation, that is a multi-million-dollar endeavor to get a case there and to successfully litigate that case. And if you lose, you're rolling the dice that you're going to be paying millions of dollars if the court disagrees with you. So the Arkansas case, which was pointed out to you, I respectfully submit, is not going to hold weight in the 4th Circuit, and the district court is not going to dismiss this case, or quite frankly, any Voting Rights Act case on the basis of the rationale in the Arkansas case, because almost every other district, since they issued their opinion, have rejected the analysis that was done. The Supreme Court has said that fees may be assessed against state and local officials after a case has been settled by a consent decree. Obviously, this case would be settled by a consent decree, and the court does that because the reality is that there's no incentive for the plaintiff to settle the case if they have to go all the way through trial. If they get a consent decree and the parties reach a resolution that is acceptable to both the plaintiffs and the defendants, then they have substantially prevailed and there's a basis for attorney's fees. We have negotiated, I think, the best deal we can in terms of the attorney's fee issue.
If I could interrupt very quickly, Mr. Karpinski.
Sure.
Could you explain to the public what you mean when you talk about consent decree?
So a consent decree would be the map that has been proposed, and if it's approved by the county council, It would go in front of the judge that is hearing this case, Judge Matthew Maddox. He's a newly appointed, I say newly appointed within the last year or so, member of the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. He would be the person who would review the settlement agreement and the consent decree, which would attach the map, which would basically say these are the councilmanic lines that will remain in place until 2030. Because after every census, obviously the jurisdictions have to go ahead and look at the population, how it's changed over the 10-year period, and then can make changes to make sure that there's adequate representation throughout the jurisdiction. So the consent decree would remain in effect to 2030, and then the county obviously would look at the new data and then make a determination as to what changes would be made. The same would hold true for the Board of Education. Their lines would remain the same until new census data is obtained, and they then would, would there be a reassessment of the lines for the council and the Board of Education.
The final determination is made specifically and only by a judge as opposed to the referendum process as most charter amendments follow?
Correct. Okay. Correct. That's the only way, quite frankly, this could get resolved short of going through extensive litigation.
Okay.
Okay. So a consent decree would be entered by a judge based upon basically the record that had been produced, which would be expert reports that the plaintiffs have generated, as well as the agreement of the parties. In my view, I think Judge Maddox, there's a good likelihood that Judge Maddox would award attorney's fees. And at this point, we're in a position to go ahead and limit the amount of those fees if the county is willing to agree to the terms of this. Quite frankly, unfortunately, this could have perhaps been all avoided if there had been more conversations before litigation was filed. The email also referenced delaying the vote until another hearing, and let me sort of address that issue as well. Part of this is that obviously the Board of Education's lines would be the same as the county council's lines. And frankly, we're running out of time for that to occur. I mean, a special bill has to get introduced in Annapolis to go ahead and have the school board's lines be the same as the council lines that would have 7 council districts. And so I would really urge you not to delay acting on this, because time really is of the essence to go ahead and move forward if a settlement is going to be reached. And then the final thing is that there was a reference in the email to an earlier case, which we located long ago. The only thing that exists of that earlier case is the docket sheet that goes back to a case from 1980. But, again, these cases are based upon current census data. So what may have been fine in 1987 is not necessarily going to pass constitutional muster in 2025. So the earlier case is respectfully not of much value in determining the merits of this case as it stands today. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Karpinski. Jeff?
I believe the executive has made a statement saying that she's in favor of this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The part about the diversity training for the council staff, would that include the executive staff as well? I'm just curious as to why just the council staff is mentioned and when the suit was brought against the county, not the council.
No, frankly, it was not asked that it be expanded, and we didn't expand it. Certainly, training is available. County offers training on a variety of subjects. to a variety of employees, but it was not asked of by the plaintiffs that a wider net of people receive training. It's not, certainly not a criticism of the county council staff, quite frankly. I just don't think, I don't know why they didn't ask for it. They didn't ask for it, and that's not one of the terms.
With what's going on a national level regarding diversity, could this potentially down the road impact our federal funding for whatever project is on the table?
I'll let Mr. Wilbur answer. I would say no. I mean, training is going to continue regardless, whether there's, this is not DEI, departments. This is training that goes on in local governments every day. It's going to continue to go on in local governments.
I'd just like to make sure we can still extend our runway. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Karpinski?
When we first knew this was coming up, I was requesting a public hearing, and I say we don't have a public hearing on the agenda.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. It's next, Joe.
It's not on my agenda.
It's number 2, public hearing, resolution 23, 2025.
It didn't show up on my agenda. Sorry.
Understood. That happens sometimes, certainly. Any other questions or comments? All right, gentlemen, I would suggest maybe you want to stay here while we go through the resolution once we get through the public comments, okay? At this time, Mrs. Engel.
Okay, so next is a public hearing on resolution number 23, 2025, which is to approve the final consent judgment and decree in civil action number 123 CV 03325 MJM, titled Wicomico County Branch of NAACP et al. Plaintiffs versus Wicomico County, Maryland et al. Defendants in the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. And a public hearing notice was published in the local newspaper on January 28th and on the county's website on January 23rd. And Mr. Karpinski and Mr. Wilbur are here if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Engel. At this time, we open the floor for public hearing on resolution number 23-2025. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this specific resolution, come to the podium, state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. Keep in mind, please, we do have a 3-minute limit, time limit.
Good evening. My name's John Palmer. I'm in the Delmar District, and I am a member of the school board. And if you look on the agenda, we are the et al. People who they're talking about here. You probably haven't heard very much from us. In fact, you probably haven't heard very much about this case. And I want to thank the county council, whoever the members were who brought this forward so that at least we could have a public hearing on this, because this is very, very important. It involves constitutional rights, like voting, freedom of speech. It involves taxpayer dollars, and it involves making sure that the public is informed about what our county council and what our school board is doing. Not getting information out. A lot of people don't recognize how this can happen, but if you just take today's agenda and you look down at the bottom, there's a section that says closed work session. And you'll see this because there's certain information that doesn't go out to the public. In fact, there's 15 numbers that can go out to the public that'll tell you why they're not bringing this out. One of the numbers that you see down here, they're using section 305B1. Well, we like to use section 305B7, which means that we're seeking legal attorney and counsel. So I was always intrigued by that because it couldn't be just that. So I looked in the Maryland code, and in that code, there's also a section in there where it says after the the council or whoever's meeting, the public entity, after the attorney gives the counsel and advice, the legal advice, the meeting is supposed to be opened back up to the public to discuss in open session, how we're going to proceed. I don't remember if this has ever happened or not. Other people are going to have to check into this, and I would advise them to check into this to see if it happened, because I kind of don't think proper procedure was followed all the way. So please check in on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Mr. Palmer, did the Board of Ed have open meetings on this?
I
And
don't.
a public hearing on this?
I don't remember a public hearing on it.
So you all didn't do a public hearing on it at all?
No, we Section 305B7. That was one of the 15 excuses why we didn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Any other public comments?
Good evening, Robert Taylor, County resident, and I'm the anonymous emailer that Mr. Karpinski mentioned. I'm glad he got my emails and responded to some of the points I raised. And I'm really not here to object to the general 7-district proposal. I'm kind of still out to lunch on that, even after what he said. I'm more concerned about the way this council has handled this by bringing this matter up, putting it on the briefing book a few days ago so that county residents really didn't get to see anything about it. There's been almost nothing in the media except an ACLU press release about a year ago when the suit was filed. And of course, there's now a new district map for the 7 districts. And the one that's in the briefing book, when you go on that website, it's, to me, unworkable. So a lot of people, and that would include me, I live in the city of Salisbury on the park, I can't tell what district I'm in. Maybe some of those district lines could be drawn somewhat better. But anyway, getting into really to the meat of things, this council should have had a public meeting on this long ago. Now, it was obvious from Mr. Hastings' appearance on Open Agenda this week that you had already made your mind up about this. This public hearing is essentially, I hate to say it, but it's a sham. You've made your mind up. And I think that's really disrespectful to the public, regardless of how they feel about the basic issue. Now, I do have one part of it that I am very concerned about, and that's the attorney's fees. And the Baltimore County case that Mr. Karpinski referenced, yes, that has been stayed. And part of the reason for that is because in the Fourth Circuit, you cannot get attorney's fees in a case of this kind unless the court has at least entered a preliminary injunction. In the Fourth Circuit, that's not considered sufficient. In most of the other circuits, it is. That case is now before the Supreme Court. Now, the difference between Baltimore County and that situation and here is the NAACP hasn't gotten a preliminary injunction in this case. So under any circumstances, under any legal precedent on this, there would be no entitlement to attorney's fees. And as I've tried to point out, the big law firm in this, Arnold & Porter, they do these cases by the dozen. They have all this stuff on automatic typewriter, basically most of the boilerplate. Yeah, they change the names and some numbers, but, you know, in my opinion, there should be no attorney's fees here. I also think the DEI training for the staff, Ms. Hurley and Lynn, is ridiculous. They don't make policy. They don't make resolutions. They don't do anything. They're essentially clerical staff. It's absurd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, Lewis Watson, Wicomico County resident, president of the Watchmen with One Voice, Minister of the Alliance. Tonight, as we stand, some may ask, what is the purpose of the lawsuit? And what are the groups hoping to achieve? Firstly, the lawsuit is about more than just moving lines on the map or redistricting. It's about justice. It's about representation, and it's about engagement. The purpose of the lawsuit is for the county and school board to acknowledge the unfairness of the election system they employ and to reform it from the 5-2 system to a racially fair system of 7 single-member districts. Further, the plaintiffs, which include the Watchmen, are seeking additional restorative measures such as aforementioned training and improved communication to address racial bias that historically has been entrenched in the county and continues to infect the community today. Why should the public care about these goals? Everyone should care about these goals because it's not a black thing. All people of goodwill should care about their fair representation and democracy in our communities. Now, why is this school board involved, and what is the goal related to the schools? The school board is involved because beginning in 2018, it changed from an appointive system that generally allowed for a diverse membership to an elective system using county's discriminatory election system to limit black representation. And since 2018, black membership has been limited to just 1 seat on the school board, whereas previously there were usually at least 2 black members. That's a big step backward in a school system that is over 62% black, indigenous people of color. I hope you will consider these comments that I have brought along with others that will follow. Thank you for the opportunity to share these comments on behalf of the Watchmen with One Voice Ministerial Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Monica Brooks. I am president of Wicomico County NAACP. And honestly, I think this process, even through our mediation, has been very helpful. And some really good things are coming out of this. As mentioned, if we were about money, if we were about personal gain, then we could have dragged this thing out. We could have made personal requests, but we didn't do that. As he mentioned, that number came down from $400,000, which wasn't even the total amount of the fees that have been spent thus far, down to this $125,000, because we're looking to move forward. We're looking to give equal opportunity for us to have diverse representation, because look at this. This ain't it. So, and it's not about your political affiliation, because we're made up of all the different parties are in our different groups. It's not about that, but it is looking at a different way, a different perspective that you may not be able to know or see because of your different experience. The last thing I wanted to say was we did file this lawsuit in 2023. The end of 2023, and we really didn't hear anything until the last 4 months. So we thought something would have been addressed much sooner. We did not intend for it to go this far, but we do not also want to hold up the school board, as was mentioned. But we thank you so much for your time, And we thank you for the mediation. And we look forward to going forward and just creating a better Wicomico.
Ms. Brooks?
Good evening. My name is Amber Green, resident of Wicomico, and I'm one of the plaintiffs. I understand that some of the community members may have concerns about the cost of the legal fees associated with the settlement, and no one wants to see the public spend money on lawsuits, but the reality is that these costs could have been avoided if we were more of a community and we took time to speak and talk to each other. And in all actuality, the truth is justice is never free. But equality comes at an even greater cost, and for decades, Black voters in Wicomico County have been denied fair representation, impacting policies, funding, and opportunities for our communities. The price of maintaining an unjust system has been paid in generations of silenced voices and unaddressed needs. This settlement is an investment into democracy and fairness. And by implementing single-member districts, we are ensuring that every resident is going to be listened to and they're going to be heard, and that benefit outweighs any legal fees. Additionally, moving forward with a fair system helps prevent future litigation costs, which will be a greater impact on our community. If we truly want to be good stewards of tax dollars, we should focus on ensuring our government operates fairly and equitably from the start, so we never have to fight this battle again. Thank you.
Ms. Green?
Good evening to the council and to the audience. My name is James Jones. I am the convener for the Caucus of African American Leaders on Maryland's Eastern Shore, all 9 counties. And we're here this evening in support of everything that has taken place. But we were prepared and we brought you a thank you for considering what has been considered thus far in the settlement of such a case as this, as such a suit as this. Because what this does essentially is this is going to eliminate heavy cost of finances against Wicomico County itself, to include the lawyers' fees, and we do believe that they are just in those. It is going to set a pattern to where we can begin to look towards working together, and that the satisfaction of people, because we have been able to reach an understanding, will go forward for the growth and the betterment of Wicomico County. So to the council, I say, not in advance, but in preparation for your decision, thank you for your consideration. Thank you for doing what we feel might be best that will save Wicomico County great financial hardship in a law case that would go far beyond where we are today in this room with the preliminaries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. Just a few points about this. It's quite apparent when you look at the population in the different districts how much of a disparity there is between the white and the black population in these districts, and that they're not being represented properly the way they should be. However, one of my concerns is that in looking through the population, we're looking at the white population, and then we're looking at the black population. But there's 15,500 people in this county that we're not looking at. I guess that's the other side of the coin. I don't really understand. I don't want to be politically incorrect, I don't want to offend anybody. Okay. My thoughts and my beliefs now in my older stages of life is that there's two classes of people, Caucasians and people of color. The people of color were not included in this. If you add them into this, you come up with two districts that are above 65% and a third district that is at 41%. Again, I have no problems, and I believe everyone should be represented and should be taken care of. My problem is the district map. I have a 4-year-old niece that I can give a crayon to and draw better lines than what are drawn on this map. This is it's ridiculous. You've got a council district that runs from the Delaware line in Sharptown to Waterview. You've got a district that runs from Allen to the Worcester County line. If the people that drew this map owned a delivery service and had to plot the best way to make deliveries that I had to do for 20 years, you'd be out of business in a week. We need to go along with what the plan is and get this taken care of so that we can move on. But in 2030, we need to draw good districts. If you start in the center of Salisbury and expand out, my belief in looking at the population is that you would end up with 3 minority districts rather than 2. And they would make a little bit more sense. So let's take care of this. Let's get everybody represented. But let's get to work for 4 more years down the road where we can make districts that look like a 4-year-old in kindergarten didn't draw the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any other comments?
Good evening, Joe Venosa, Salisbury, Wicomico. Just wanted to say one thing as I was watching the proceedings at home and then as I got in here. This has been discussed before a little bit in the context of, the basic premise of the lawsuit was that the at-large seats were themselves the basis of racial discrimination. If we concur with that, then we need to at least ponder the significance now of the county executive position, because that is going to remain the only at-large position. So even though, obviously, question A did not pass last time, it does remain, I would argue, a institutional position that is unfortunately going to represent some of those same structural inequities, regardless of what happens with your decision. So the public needs to be aware of that, and I'm kind of surprised that the executive is not here to sort of lead on the issue. It's kind of interesting that both the executive and Councilman Wynn are not here, given the gravity of this situation. But it would have been nice to see the executive take a position publicly as active local leadership, rather than sort of a last-minute acquiescence to it, as Mr. Merritt indicated. So again, that's something that I hope will be rectified. But the nature of the executive position is still going to be with us, and unfortunately, I fear it's going to continue with some of these past inequities regardless. So the public should be aware of that, and the public should do the research about what kind of person you want in that role, especially when we're talking about issues of racial discrimination, bigotry, and linkages to certain groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venosa.
President Cannon and other council members, I'm Eddie Boyd, one of the plaintiffs in this case. And actually, for me, this goes back to the early 80s when the decision was made to switch from the all at-large districts, all at-large seats on the county council, to our current system. And at that time, I, along with members of a group called the New Directions, certainly fought against the current system. I testified before this council in the early 80s, mid-80s, regarding this. And in fact, I remember bringing in two maps, one consisting of 5 council districts, all single-member districts. And if the council wanted to remain at with 5 council members as it was at that time, and then if the council was going to proceed to enlarge the number of council members to 7, I had a map for that. And I was a part of the lawsuit that was filed way back in the 80s by the Justice Department. In fact, I testified in that particular suit. But nevertheless, I'm here tonight, though, to really, first of all, compliment Mr. Kopinski for laying out the case as it is and sharing, you know, what the pros and cons of going forward is, and also to say to Mr. Cannon and Mrs. Shields, they're did a heck of a job of negotiating, bringing the cost, the proposed cost, from the $400,000 down to the $125,000. So I certainly do hope that you will vote tonight to approve this agreement, and I would certainly be satisfied that after fighting for the single-member districts since the early 80s, that I could get some rest from such a long endeavor. And then one other point I'd like to make with regards to the way things were back in the 80s. There were, for a long time, there was not a county executive. And one of the things that the then county council argued is we need these 2 at-large seats so that we would have council members who would be concerned about the whole county and not so concerned about their individual districts. But now we do have a county exec, and then the citizens of this county just voted recently to continue the county exec system, who has that responsibility of handling the executive function of the county, and you are now the legislative portion of the county. And it makes sense then that all of the districts would be single-member districts. And so I'm just, again, hoping that after tonight, this will be resolved, we can move forward. And I guess I need to say one other thing. Yeah, I was a member of the school board for 10 years. And during those 10 years...
Sorry, Dr. Boyd, your time is running out.
Oh, is it time up?
Sorry about that.
Well...
Go ahead and wrap.
Should I go ahead?
Just wrap. If you could wrap it up. Thank you.
Well, and during those 10 years, I'll just say this. I served on the school board with Sonny Henry, who's an African-American male. I served on the school board with Randolph Outen, the late Randolph Outen, who's an African-American male when Randolph passed. I served on the school board with his widow, Sylvia Outen. And so there are many, many examples where we had 2 African-Americans on the school board simultaneously. But the way things are constructed today, unless this has changed, we will only have 1 representative on the school board, which is extremely unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
Okay. Pardon me.
My name is Mary, AKA Marion Ashanti, civil rights, human rights activist, member of the executive member of the Caucus of African American Leaders and the Wicomico County NAACP. First, giving honor to God, next President Kennel and members of the County Council. I rise to urge approval of Resolution number 23-2025, the final consent judgment and decree, because it is the moral, ethical, and legal action to take. It will bring Wicomico County in compliance of the Civil Rights Act of 1965. It will bring Wicomico County in compliance with the Civil Rights Act of 1965. I repeated that for a reason. It will provide all the citizens of Wicomico County the opportunity to vote and receive equal representation. And I support the comments that went before me of Dr. Boyd, Monica Brooks, Convener Jones, Reverend Watson. Thank you, and I urge passage of this.
Thank you, Mrs. Shawnee. Public comments. Seeing none, that concludes public comments on Resolution 23, 2025. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 23, 2025.
So moved.
So moved. Second? Who gave me the motion? Josh. Need a second? Jeff. Okay, thank you very much. Discussion on Resolution 23, 2025. Council. Hello, Josh, go ahead.
I just do want to add we need to make sure that on the resolution itself that we have a line for the county executive. So I'm just going to make a motion to amend Resolution 23-2025 to add a signature line for the county executive.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes. Any other? Jeff? The only comment I would like to make is that it was stated that our mind was already made up. I mean, that to me is a pretty broad statement. I think the reality is that the council from day one had very limited options as far as what we could do from the first day that we began the negotiations. I think if you had attended the over 3-hour negotiations that we had with the arbiter and with the judges, you'd appreciate the fact that the council, together with Mr. Karpinski, actually came to the very best resolution possible for Wicomico County outside of exposing ourselves, as Mr. Karpinski shared earlier, outside of exposing ourselves to hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional legal expenses. So that's pretty much where that lies. So now we do have a decision as to how we're going to vote on this matter and how we agree to settle this lawsuit. My only concern in this entire process has really been not the issue of 5 and 2 districts or 7 districts. My real issue all along has really been the process on how this came about. I wish that from day one that this county council had been approached at any point in time and asked whether or not we might consider the option of going to a 7-district council. The outcome could have been much more different. There was no notice ahead of time for us to have any say in this matter whatsoever. The individuals who have brought this suit, there were plenty of opportunities for this to have been pointed out to the county as a whole, not just the council. We had a redistricting committee that met for several months, and I don't recall any members of these specific committees or these organizations attending these meetings and expressing their concerns. That was there was a charter review committee. There was also a redistricting committee. And we also have county council meetings, 2 on a monthly period. And there was never any members of these specific organizations at this time with this council who came before us and said, John, we have a problem, or the council, we have a problem with the 5 and 2 district. As a matter of fact, the day that this was first brought to our attention was out on the, right outside of this building, on the steps of the government office building, when there was a press conference and a protest. in light of the fact that Wicomico County was considered to be circumstances where we were inequitable in this type of a process. And this was actually, ironically, 2 days after we had a county council meeting. But none of the individuals that were out there on those steps on that day came before this county council and expressed any of those concerns either. So it's a matter of the process, I think, that sort of put us behind the 8 ball here. And I think, had a letter just simply been sent to this council, had a phone call been made to this council, or even a comment made during public comments at a county council meeting, I think we would have very easily come to some a resolution and been able to avoid $125,000 in legal expenses that could, in my opinion, been much better spent on the citizens of Wicomico County. So, yes, Josh?
I just want to add on real quick, and also for clarity for the public, I know Mr. Karpinski mentioned the 9 jingles factors and other, there's a little terminology there, but to be clear, this all stems back from the Voting Rights Act, as was pointed out. So putting together these districts could only consider black population compared to white, not minority as a whole. And I think folks have mentioned here that, we're a very diverse community as a whole. We're becoming more diverse. We have 44 languages or 23 languages, 44 total dialects and languages spoken in Wicomico County schools. We are growing in a very different way. I do want to say, of course, thank you, Mr. Boyd, and so many others who have worked for 40 years to make a more perfect union and a more perfect system. But I also want to make sure that we're also acknowledging here, creating this map, creating this system also, it also creates hyper-partisan districts. And that's not, I think, that's not good for democracy as a whole. We need to continue to focus on ways that we can make democracy better. And in this case, we're talking about, for clarity, a 25-35% difference between the amount of one political party to another. Anyone knows me knows how much I despise the current duopoly of the Republican and Democrat duopoly, those two parties together. We need to do better in general. And so I think as we go forward, in addition to continuing to make maybe, future efforts like independent redistricting commission, making that an actual standard thing in law for Wicomico County that we do, I think that's positive. I think more of the efforts that we've been talking about to have more engagement is a positive thing. But we also we need to continue to be stronger in all the ways that we can. And I know that this is a step forward, and we're always going to, there'll be more step forwards, but going forward. But I do think as we get into the next redistricting in approaching 2030, that we have a very comprehensive, fully engaged approach in doing so. So, and with that, I also want to add, I do think the various sides over the past year, I think council wanted to be more public about things, but, when you're in a lawsuit, you can't be very public about certain things. But I think the various sides worked well together in general and had, from what I could see, fairly good communication. I do want to make sure that our attorneys and folks understood how much we did appreciate that positive communication back and forth. And that we all will continue over the next 5 years to continue, as Mr. Boyd and others have done, to make a more perfect union or a more perfect system. So thank you, everyone.
Joe.
We keep hearing this $125,000. That's probably just the tip of the iceberg of what all this has cost. I'm sure Mr. Karpinski's keeping a running tab. And Mr. Wilbur.
The longer you speak, Joe, the longer you speak.
Mr. Wilbur is, Mr. Wilbur, doesn't work for free. And I concur with John, if folks had come to us, I don't think there's anything that anybody has brought to this council in the past few years that, it was relevant that we wouldn't put on the agenda to discuss. This could have been avoided. The public hearing, somebody said something about whoever brought the public. I requested to have a public hearing on this, even though I couldn't find it on my agenda here a few minutes ago. And we get accused a lot of times of not being transparent. And I find it a little hard to believe that the Board of Ed didn't have public hearings on this too. That was they're supposed to kind of follow the same protocol we do. So that's all I have about this. Thank you.
Jeff?
Question for Mr. Wilbur, and I concur with President Cannon. When this lawsuit was dropped, I think I was the first phone call from Mr. Wilbur asking, at any time, has anybody since you've been in office approached you, asked you, requested meetings? And my answer was simply no. So conversation would have been a really good thing. For the public's knowledge, do we know where the $125,000 is coming from? Is that general fund? Or?
Yep, at the next meeting, the money will be transferred from the general fund.
General fund, okay.
For the expenditure.
Okay.
From the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just, again, for the public's knowledge. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a note on that. Thank you. Any other comments? Shane?
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat what everyone has said. I mean, a lot of people have my phone number. Feel free to call if we have a problem like this moving forward. There's no need to get wrapped up into a lawsuit. If there's something that we can do to prevent that, that's all.
And because Mr. Benson always has my back, and yours as well, Shaney, he wanted to remind me to ask you if you had any comments that you'd like to make.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say communication is a lot. It means a lot. And I do agree since I'm the minority representative, I think that discussion should have been made around the community to educate the people on why we need to do this. And it came to a surprise for me because I didn't know anything about it until the press conference. I was part of the redistricting for the city of Salisbury, and we went to 3 places around the city to explain the 2 to 5 districts. And District 2 was one of the minority districts. However, I want to suggest that I do support this. I want to suggest that all of us in the minority community should make sure we get our people out to vote. If we don't get our people out to vote, you can have 7 minority districts, and there's no guarantee that a minority will get in, because we have to do our job to get the people out to vote, including myself. We need to be more active in that activity during election time. I'm willing to talk to people if they call me. I have people calling me 11 o'clock at night, because most of the time I'm up all night. But if you have any concerns about race, other issues, education, just please call me so I will know what's going on, because basically you are the eyes and ears of the community to share what's going on. It's just like the people picking up trash. That's a simple thing. So we're selecting Jersey Road for the first trash pickup in March. Then you have the houses with all the cars and all that kind of stuff. These are issues that people approach me, but anything that's serious, homelessness, anything like that, I don't mind talking it over and sharing the concern with the council, or come before the council for a work session. Again, I do agree that we have many more diverse groups in our community, and I'm a person that believes in working for the whole county, not just District 1. I think that we as council members really represent the whole county. So I think that I'm glad this is over. I'm really glad it's over, and I'm glad people are happy with the decision that was made.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shields. Any other comments from council members? Okay. I'd only like to say before we finish this, I'd like to thank Mr. Benson for his help, Mr. Wilbur, Mr. Karpinski, without a doubt, and Mrs. Hurley for their input on this. This was hours, endless hours and hours and hours and weeks trying to make sure we did the best we could for this county and the fellow council members as well. All those in favor of Resolution 2025 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 23-2025 as amended passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Have a safe trip back.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution Number 24-2025, which is amending the FY 2025 Position Control Document, which is Exhibit E for the addition of a position 100566 titled Program Coordinator for the Wicomico Partnership for Families and Children for the Local Management Board. And Ms. Stephanie King, the Director of the Local Management Board, is here if there's any questions.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 24-2025.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. King? If you could give us a quick overview, let us know, let the public know your title and et cetera, and we'll let you give a quick overview.
Hi, Stephanie King, Director of Local Management Board. Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Thank you.
So this was approved, the Enough Act grant, the capacity building grant was approved last council meeting, and Pam Olin let you guys know then that we were going to be coming back to add a position. We had to get the position control number.
Just so the public is aware of the position, what the position's for, how it's being funded, et cetera, that'd be great.
Okay, so it is a program coordinator position under the Enough Act capacity building grant. It was an allocation from the state, so it's completely grant funded.
And this grant, just so council is aware, we had it confirmed from the state that this is 100% state funds. So anything going on with the federal government and grants, this is not one that would be caught up in that at the moment. So that is, we wanted to verify that before we tried to hire somebody. And so we did get that verified in writing by the state that this is 100% state funds. This position will be 100% funded by the grant, and but because their positions are listed on the position control document, we are asking for a new position to be added.
Again, for public knowledge, because this is the question that always gets asked. Once the grant, if the grant were to end, is it a 2-year grant, is it a 3-year grant, so that the public is aware?
So the grant currently has a June 30th.
We requested a 90-day at no cost extension, so it's September 30th is the end of this grant.
And if we do not get a renewal into the next year, the position then no longer exists. It is not one that would then become a county position.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 24-2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Shane. Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is Resolution 25-2025, which is to authorize the county to acquire an easement on 310.83 acres, more or less, within the Quantico Creek Rural Legacy Area from Donald R. Tracy, trustee of the Donald R. Tracy 1999 Trust, and Alice H. Tracy, trustee of the Alice H. Tracy 1999 Trust. The property is located on the easterly and westerly side of Hickory Mill Road and is designated on tax map 19 as parcels 7 and 81. And we have Jared Parks here, the director of the land program for the Lower Shore Land Trust, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Single. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 25-2025.
So move.
Second. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
That's all we have.
Thank you, Ms. Engel. Mr. Benson.
We're introducing Legislative Bill 2025-03. It's an act to amend Chapter 59 of the Wicomico County Code titled Personnel Rules, Article 5 titled Other Rules, Section 5923 titled Payment of Unauthorized Salary, Penalties, Removal, and Liability by adding a subsection C. There is an existing section in the county code, and the purpose of this is to clear up any discrepancies or issues, and it specifically applies primarily applies to the court system, to the state's attorney's office, to the sheriff's department, and you have before you representatives of all three of those departments.
Good evening.
Entertain a motion from council to introduce legislative bill number 2025-03.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. State
Good
Attorney,
evening.
I would ask if I could please for each of you from my left to right, just to state your name and your position for the public record.
Good evening, Major Todd Richardson, Wicomico County Sheriff's Office.
Jamie Dyke, State's Attorney.
Jimmy Starbane, Circuit Court Judge.
Andrew Illuminati, County Attorney's Office.
Judge, just so you're aware, the state's attorney will step over you all night long if you don't speak up, okay?
Not the first time he's experienced that.
No, it's not.
We'll give you the floor, Madam State's Attorney.
So we are asking this is a bill introduction, if I'm correct?
Correct.
For the council to consider amending Chapter 59. The reality is that in order to streamline, from my office's perspective, I won't speak for the sheriff's office or the courts, but to streamline operationally, it's necessary to take us back to where we were before 2020-09. And this does that, given our elected positions and state offices that we hold.
Major, did you have any comment?
The one biggest thing with us during the fiscal year, one, we're looking at a budget 6 months before it takes place, and then we're spending it 18 months later. If we make one promotion at a higher rank, we have to come before you for every rank that needs to be promoted back to that. So if I have a lieutenant that retires, I replace a lieutenant, a first sergeant, and a corporal. It's 5 promotions, and we would have to come with each one of you to adjust the position control document each time.
Judge? So,
I don't think much different to add. It's the same issues in terms of replacement of individuals and being able to kind of have control. I do think with the courts, there's also we're in a little bit of a different place as a separate branch of government. By rule, the courts are in theory allowed to set their own classification system, compensation system, things of that nature. I think this is part of that, just getting us back to sort of where we should be. I think some of this goes back to actually when it became a county exec form of government. There's some things that have occurred that I probably should not have occurred, but weren't clarified as it relates to the court system. We're going to work on that in the future, but I think this is part of that process.
and I think the council's had numerous discussions. We're aware of the extenuating circumstances in reference to each of your individual departments and organizations. Do you have a comment, Jeff?
To be clear, this is for salaries only, not operating expenses, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill number 2025-03, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Introduction of legislative bill number 2025-03. The introduction passes unanimously. Very much appreciate you here. Good to
Thank
see you.
Good to see everybody.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we open the floor for public comments. If you have any comments that you'd like to make, come to the podium. Please state your name, your county of residence, and your concern.
I'm Bruce Robson, Wicomico County resident, and I'm here on behalf of Wicomico Clean, which is a volunteer group committed to cleaning up roads in our county, addressing the litter and illegal dumping issues. I'm going to pass out here, and I didn't read the agenda till just now, and so I was supposed to have 10 copies, but I only have 5 because I knew Shaney wasn't going to be here, and Josh has seen this. So anyway, this is basically related to the last cleanup we did on Saturday, where volunteers picked up almost a ton of trash, okay, a ton. 8 tires, bags and bags and bags of trash. Thank you, sir, very much. And so it's we're successful. We can pick it up. Unfortunately, I think I've said this before, like sweeping sand off a beach in the fact that we come back a month later, a couple weeks later, and it's back again. And included in that are some pictures of decaying plastic bags. We actually had the classic bag in a tree waving its hand at us like a flag. I've referenced before our desire to talk about a way to reduce public plastic bags in our landfill. Actually, I saw that between now and 2030, the base cost of a new cell is, I think, $12 million, a new cell at the landfill. This is not a cure-all. We don't kid ourselves. It's not a cure-all. But it would be a step to try and get some legislation to address and encourage use of reusable bags as opposed to plastic bags. Thank you very much.
My name is Mary, AKA Mary Ashanti, resident Wicomico County, NAACP. I come before you not representing any organization. What I need to say is something to you. Each one of you on the county council said that we should have come to you. Now, I want you to think of this, and the audience and everything. If somebody files a lawsuit against you, and it tells what their concerns are, in December 2023, and there was a press conference that was telling you right then that there's a problem. So you had from December 23, and we're in 2025. I'm not a lawyer, but somewhere along the line, I think you all could have said, we need to come to the table and talk. So I take offense to everything that you all said about we should have did this and that and the other. It's just common sense. If somebody filed a lawsuit against me, they're telling me there's a problem and telling me that maybe I should talk with them and try to resolve their problem before we get to court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shawnee. Yes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Elise Trolligan. I live in District 4 here in Wicomico County, and I'm also the recent past chair of the City Sustainability Advisory Committee, known as the Green Team. Our team members have been hosting trash cleanups in the community for more than 6 years, and plastic pollution is pervasive in what we find on the roadsides, in the rivers, and in the trees, as Bruce just shared. Over the course of these cleanups, community members regularly remark on the need to take more aggressive and proactive measures to address the plastic pollution issue. In 2021, we conducted a survey with community members to better understand what environmental issues they care most about. Number one was litter and plastic pollution. In response to those two data points, the Green Team proposed the idea of a comprehensive ban on single-use plastic bags to the city. The administration was notionally interested, and they had us take on a process of better understanding how municipalities and county governments were implementing that process. So we did just that, interviewing dozens of leaders across Maryland. Fast forward to 2023, the Green Team continued to work hand in hand with the city to roll out the Shop Green SBY initiative. That was our positive framing for the comprehensive plastic bag ban. We also supported them in a full communication plan for engaging businesses and residents, and also an equity plan to make sure that people who needed bags most were able to access those. You might be wondering, why am I sharing this today? The impact of the bag ban in the city has been significant. A large portion of Wicomico County residents are already shopping at stores that fall within the limits and are thus using reusable bags as they're shopping. We're finding fewer plastic bags in these cleanups, especially those that are happening in city limits, but the work is definitely not done. There are groups, like we just heard from, and individuals that are still working to address the litter problem. Wicomico Clean, Salisbury Green Team, Boy Scouts, the Fonts Foundation. I know you've seen the good work that they've done on social media and here in meetings. But we need a more proactive solution, and policy is the most impactful tool in our local toolbox. I'm really encouraged by the number of groups that are committed to addressing our litter issue, just as the Green Team has done with the city. And I think the city council members can look to some of these groups to support an equitable and collaborative policy for reducing plastic bags in the whole of Wicomico County. So I encourage you to consider that while you're hearing all these people talking about this issue, and think about what can we do together to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Culligan.
Good evening. I brought my own bottle. I have a love-hate relationship with this bottle, so I'm sacrificing here. Sarah Lee Monroe, Wicomico resident and organizer of the annual Rite of Silence, Maryland Eastern Shore, which honors cyclists who have died as a result of a crash with a driver versus cyclist. I was asked to speak by Bruce and a few other members of the Wicomico Clean Group. As a cyclist, we see all the litter. To us, streets and roads are no different than national, state, county, and city parks. We leave no trace. You may be asking why that is. Not only is litter unsightly, it can be dangerous. All road debris and trash blow to the side or the curb of all roads and streets, right where Maryland law requires bicyclists to ride. A cyclist cannot run over cans, plastic bottles, glass bottles, and bags because we don't know what's in them. And if we hit it and we flat, or it shoves us off into traffic, it's even more dangerous. So we navigate the debris sometimes further into the traffic than we would like. The same applies to bird scooters and single wheels. We may not like them. We may have to drive around them, but they're here. Any progress you make funding litter, bottle deposits, and illegal dumping realize a substantial return on investment and safety. Likewise, a ban on single-use bags. Will there be pushback? Absolutely. You saw what Salisbury went through. There's a term for the harassment and hate that bicyclists experience at the cost of drivers. It's called bike-lash. We can use the same term or a similar term for litter. That could be bag lash. It could be litter lash. You're going to be hit hard. When constituents take it upon themselves to solve a community-wide issue, maybe this litter has been ignored too long. If you aren't convinced yet that litter is problematic, maybe you can tell us what good purpose litter serves. I no longer see single-use bags flying through the air or stuck in trees in Salisbury. I wish I could say the same about Wicomico County. Thank you for your time and attention, and I do want to thank Josh, and I believe it was Jeff that joined us on the 1st of February for the litter pickup. Thank you.
My name's Rodney Brown, Wicomico County. I live on Atkins Road. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's a biorefinery going down on Hickory Mill and Atkins Road. Okay? And for some reason, Wicomico County always becomes a dumping ground for these type of businesses. Okay? I sent Josh some pictures and some correspondence emails from City Councilor Mr. Meadows. Thank God that he stopped this whole process because they tried to do a commercial business in a residential area. So this whole situation, one, it's got to be questioned, how did it get that far to begin with? And two, the public wasn't even notified about any of the information that was going on down the road. I've been there 30 years. 30 years. I travel that road every single day. Not one public notice was posted or anything. Josh made a comment that the permit actually says it's a storage unit. That damn thing is big as a, and you can see it from, I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, it's got garage doors. I would think that a storage or manure building has open end. I'm not a farmer, but I'm a pretty smart dude. I can figure it out. Some of the pictures that he has is disturbing. He has concrete in that building with a drain. The only reason why you have a drain, because he's gonna drain something. What's he gonna drain? And where's that gonna go? We're right over top of Paleo River. That's where we're at. That's good water. So my question would be, if he's already doing something in there, as far as inside that building, what has been dumped there? There's a swale behind that building. Usually when there's a swale, water's involved. That's very disturbing. And you know what the main thing is? There's daycare centers in our area. My property value, if you guys put one of those things out there, let alone the smell, I don't even know what chicken litter is. I think it's chicken poop. Okay? But there was another thing you had. Chicken, dead chickens, or whatever. They're supposed to try to get that into like some kind of gas or whatever it's supposed to be. I don't even know what the end product's gonna be. But thank God that that man stopped the whole process. So there's supposed to be an appeal coming up on the 27th. And I hope that that doesn't go through in our community. I'll tell you what we do. Let's take all that stuff and put it in this dale. Put it in this dale. See what happens then. I guarantee you it would never even started. Thank you.
Hey, as a point of order, our new Director of Planning and Zoning, Ms. Tracy Green-Taylor, has an extensive explanation of what happened, and you could contact her. She's very, very easy to work with, and she can give everyone a complete breakdown of what Wicomico County has done. From my understanding, I believe this started with the state of Maryland, not Wicomico County, whereby the application process was not 100% what it was supposed to have been, and the state helped fund with quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it was
helped fund the
$7.76 million.
Yes, so we're aware of it now. We have got it, for the most part, we have it under control. The county is doing the very best it can to isolate this. But she will.
Yeah, something.
But just so you're aware, because we don't engage in conversations on public comments, but I think it's relevant that everybody should contact her for extensive understandings of what happened and how it's been resolved.
Well, I would honestly say that's $7.76 million, right? This guy is actually located, his office is down there by Warwick Community College. That's where his building, that's where he says runs his business out of.
Understood.
Okay?
Understood.
So there's $7.76 million going to a biorefinery. And if you go look at that place, and I highly recommend that somebody go in there and check that place out.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
There's probably some illegal stuff going on in there.
Hi, my name's Krista Hughes, resident of Wicomico County. I'm here to put on public record my opposition to the project of a biorefinery on 8665 Hickory Mill Road. This property is not zoned for such an operation. Raj Kathoria lied to the county about his intent for this property. However, the state didn't communicate properly with the county, and this guy was given his building permit before he ever technically owned the property. Though the county sent a letter saying this property wasn't for appropriate use, the county's planning and zoning allowed his request for appeal. That makes no sense. This property is in a neighborhood with approximately 80 nearby homes. Therefore, I request an immediate work stop order issued on this property or any other permits related to this type of project that may develop there or in any of the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Maria Payan. I work for a nonprofit that works in the region. I've been in front of council before. The project that we're talking about, the scale of this, and I'll give you an example. In order to be profitable, there are a couple poultry houses on that farm. 8 large poultry houses on another farm where it failed were not enough to run that operation. And he wants to grow it. And that's within a lot of the PIA requests. We came to you, Monica did, when we found out, we requested, what was applied for. And it was an ag storage building. There were many breakdowns. Firstly, MDE permits, air permits, you may transfer owners. I've never seen a location get transferred. Where was the state in contact with the county? That should have happened. But no matter how it happened, we're here now, and there's a lot of people, what they make, because I've seen the application, bio oil, syngas, biochar, one's for road extenders, one's for jet fuel, one's, the biochar is heavy in phosphorus, which we can't put on our fields here. In one of the documents, it was stated nothing was going to be brought in. There are 2 tanker trucks on that property, okay? Tanker trucks are not used to haul dry litter. Please do the right thing. Your zoning is very protective, and it's very clear. Refineries are in a place where it makes sense for them to be. This is energy production. This is not agriculture. And there's, public health threats. There's daycare centers. These people, they live here. You're talking constant truck traffic in and out. You have the ability right now. The gentleman lied on his application to you. That, to me, should speak volumes when he already had the permit in his hand of what he really intended and of future, engagements with him. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening again, Robert Taylor again. Just following up a few things that I didn't have in my 3 minutes. The case that Mr. Karpinski mentioned from some years ago in the district court here in Maryland that actually upheld the 5-2, the current system we have. That was in 1991. That was after the former council, not you guys, switched to the 5-2 system. The Department of Justice, which was the plaintiff in that case, actually continued on wanting that struck down. The district court judge upheld it. Now, yes, 30 years plus have gone by. Things have changed. I just point that out. There was some remark from the bench here that, well, nobody ever came to us and asked. I would point out, and Ms. Brooks may not know this, back when you all had your charter review committee a couple years ago, another gentleman who will remain nameless and I both suggested to that group that there was problems with the 5-2 system, legal problems. And we fell on deaf ears. Mike Dunn didn't want to hear about it. So, it has been brought up. And as I pointed out earlier, I'm not opposed to the change you made. I'm opposed and very upset about the way you went about it, because the public needed to have more information about this very fundamental change in the government structure. Okay, half my time's gone. I want to turn to something else, and I did send it to you. It's an editorial in today's Wall Street Journal. It's called The Californication of Maryland. And that title refers to what Wes Moore is leading us down, the road he's taking us on. And it is going to be disastrous. I would urge you to read that article. And if you don't have it, go online. It'll probably be on some social media very soon. But his tax changes he's making, the expenses that are being made, every time Jake Day comes here, I call him the candy man. He seems like he has a few $1 million checks in his pocket. It's unbelievable. The state is in a huge deficit position. How can we keep on doing this? We're getting Californicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Mike Goldberg, Wicomico. Law enforcement and judicial resources are routinely being weaponized against anyone who dares to speak out against the county executive, Julie Giordano, or her senior staff members. It's also well known that dozens of county employees have been intimidated into silence out of fear for their jobs. The most recent egregious incident involves Councilman Shane Baker. Last week, Mr. Baker accepted service of 2 interim peace orders filed against him by Deputy Sheriff Keith Newton and his wife, who claimed that they felt threatened by Councilman Baker. Now, an interim peace order only requires payment of a nominal fee and filing of a petition. They are almost always automatically granted. In other words, a ham sandwich can get an interim peace order. The hearing for the permanent peace order was held last Friday. The court denied the peace orders because they failed to meet the necessary burden of proof. The burden of proof was low, only a preponderance of evidence, but not even this low threshold of evidence could be met. However, Councilman Baker did have to pay legal fees to defend against these specious allegations, which was apparently among the petitioner's objectives. This tactic can only be described in a single word: lawfare. There is a great deal of history of the use of lawfare by the executive's office and those closely associated with her. I myself was served with a peace order initiated by a senior employee of the executive branch, which was ultimately withdrawn upon discovery that there was video evidence indisputably proving that the allegations were false. This same employee also tried to have me arrested for trespassing on what she claimed to be county property, the access road to the Connolly Mill Quarry. But the facts are that the access road is privately owned, and the owner had given me explicit written permission to be on that road. Nothing came of it, but this did not stop Giordano from slandering me on Facebook by posting that I probably forged the letter of permission. Community leader Joe White had his truck vandalized, which displayed a sign favoring the Question A referendum. A Wicomico deputy sheriff is currently being investigated for this crime, whose family members are coincidentally among Giordano's largest campaign contributors. Councilman Jeff Merritt was accused of a conflict of interest for providing printing services to the county. Mr. Merritt twice requested the Ethics Commission to investigate, and both times they found that no conflict existed. Councilman Joe Holloway was publicly accused by one of the executive's acolytes of bribery, which upon investigation was found to be baseless. There are many more examples of such lawfare, but time only permits me to lay out these few. So, what is the common denominator in these many spurious legal actions? All of the accusers orbit around Julie Giordano. They are either part of the executive branch of the Wicomico County government, or are campaign contributors to Ms. Giordano, or are people who have campaigned for and supported her. Is this coincidental? Well, that seems unlikely. What's happening in this county is the very essence of fascism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg.
Joe Vanosa again. Coincidentally, Californication is the name of a great album by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, it sounded familiar.
Just saying. I don't want to repeat what Mr. Goldberg so eloquently stated, but I do want to say this to Councilman Baker because I didn't have the opportunity to go to the court during the proceedings. But I very much feel for you and what you went through. And obviously, as we all know, that's a pattern in our county government. We are really seeing every step of the way threats made to both elected officials and private citizens. And again, the county executive is continuously the common denominator. This is well known. This is no secret in the county. So from just an individual level, sir, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Obviously, no one likes to be slandered in such a way, particularly through individuals in the community who also, some would say, still have a contract with the county government to disseminate media. That's a different story. But you handled yourself incredibly well from what I've heard. And again, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I commend you for consistently speaking truth to power. And not being afraid to go against whether it's an executive, someone in your party. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And that goes for most of the council as well. I would just also like the public to be aware that at this point, there's about 6 or 7 people that are concerned that they will be targeted by the executive in the near future over some specious lawsuit. Usually runs about $3,000 to $5,000. To be prepared to defend it in court. So if you are going to speak truth to power, save up your pennies because the executive might get frisky with their legal actions. So good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Vanosa.
Good evening. I'm just going to make it short and sweet. My name is Laura Leopre. I live in Wicomico County. As brought up before, that biorefinery that kind of slipped in under the radar and that zoning kind of put a kibosh on with a letter. I'm really concerned for the appeals process. We as neighbors that live in that area, we're very, very close to this biorefinery. It's heavy industrial. We're all on well water out there. We have aquifers that could be affected. I mean, I saw on TV everything going on with the PFASs in the water. So, you know, not even that, the water, but the air contamination, you know, it could do a damage. Anybody that has COPD, asthma, any kind of health issues. So I do want to put it on the record that I'm happy that a letter went out in denial, but I hope things get followed through and he doesn't try to slip in with having legal recourse to try to get this overturned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leopre.
In case anybody's counting, this is the third time. Jim Atkins, Wicomico County. As I was growing up, I used to like to listen to Paul Harvey because he always had a feature on his newscast. And now you know the rest of the story. So here we go. The executive spoke on her executive exclusive recently about the liquor legislation passed last year and how she was able to open the door and that she was still working on a couple of different angles because Wicomico County has an antiquated and broken system. She stated that she continues to hear from her constituents that they are unhappy with the liquor system in the county, and she was still trying to make it efficient if we are still going to have a dispensary system. Well, the council members have constituents too, and they are reacting to the voices of their constituents. I would bet that the council's constituents voicing opposition to the proposed liquor legislations outnumber the voices asking for changes, although they may not outnumber the campaign contributions made to the executive. As an example, how did the legislation for Crown Sports liquor license go? Oh yeah, a 14-year-old girl was served beer by a 17-year-old employee. Good job. It was then discussed if the council disagreed with the executive's legislation suggestions, where were their bills? Where are their legislative priorities? Stated Councilman Wynn had a legislative bill concerning Sunday hunting. I don't remember any legislative bills coming from any of the other council members. Okay, the Sunday hunting bill is now in its third year since it was proposed, and nothing has changed with the law. The council, however, did pass a legislative bill concerning motorized events on county properties. This bill was vetoed by the executive, overridden by the council due to the voices of their constituents. The council then passed legislation concerning policies for use of county vehicles, vetoed by the executive, overridden by the council due to the voices of their constituents. Councilman Wynn requested legislation and a letter of support to allow farmers with crop damage permits to be able to use them during state-regulated hunting seasons, which is currently not allowed. The council went along with this, as did the executive. After immense pushback from landowners, hunting clubs, and others, the next week, Councilman Wynn tried to have the support letter stopped, but it had already been sent. The executive then posted on her Facebook she was withdrawing her support and blamed the council for, and I quote, the lack of thorough research and deliberation by the county council. Where was her research? The executive states that her priorities are her constituents' priorities and wonders if things are not going forward or more of a vendetta towards her instead of what's actually beneficial to the community.
Ask you to wrap, Mr. Atkins.
Yes, sir. Remember, all the citizens of the county are your constituents, not just the large campaign contributions that are being made to the executive. As always, there's more, but there's not enough time. And now you know the rest of the story.
Any public comments? Sir, I cannot have you speak twice. I hate to tell you that. No, we have restrictions on
Really?
that. Yes, yeah, because we have
I'll be
to.
back.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, we'd like to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Scott, and I'm in Wicomico County. As a matter of fact, I'm exactly a half a mile from where this biorefinery is supposed to happen. I'm very upset about it on multiple levels. It's like this guy just kind of slipped this thing in the dark. We were not made aware of it, which is very concerning, not only to me, but as my fellow neighbors. Also, I'm concerned about the clean water that is going to be affected, as was brought up before. We're on well water. We don't even filter our water right now because it is so good we've had to test it. I don't want that messed up. I'm concerned that if it goes into effect, our housing is going to go down as far as our worth. That's very concerning. And lastly, on a personal level, I have asthma. My husband is a retired disabled vet. He has COPD. We have a small fish pond in our front yard that I've had out there since before 1998. I like to sit out there in nice weather. He likes to sit out there in nice weather. I can't sit out there right now when there's leaves burning in the neighborhood because of my asthma, and I understand that. But to bring in a biorefinery into a residential area where if it's running 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, putting these pollutants out, I'll never be able to sit out in my yard. So I just beg that I appreciate that you have denied us permit in the first stages, but I beg and plead you to not allow it to be overturned. Thank you.
Ms. Scott.
Hey, my name is Matthew Olson. I'm a Wicomico County resident. I live just about a half a mile away from where this biomass is supposed to be going in. I'm also here on behalf of a couple of friends and neighbors of mine, the Tomcos and the Fitzgeralds, who live on Log Cabin Road. Here tonight with me is also some of my family members. I have my in-laws over here, Curtis and Paula Hooper, who live on Waller Road, and Amber Jones, who also lives on Waller Road. Wouldn't you know it too, just about a half a mile down from them, I have more family. So as you can understand, this is a very important issue for all of us here. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the emissions. This is a plant that would run 24/7, 365 every single day. There was emission testing done on the permit documents, and I don't know exactly what these are, but I just kind of want to run through these a little bit with you. PM 2.5 and PM 10 particles are absorbed into the lungs and increase tissue damage and adverse health effects. Research shows that breathing in these airborne particles can cause asthma, bronchitis, chronic lung issues, and COPD, particularly in the elderly and children. Long-term exposure can lead to premature death, infant mortality, and cancer. Expected to be 1.72 tons per year of PM 10 and 1.72 tons of PM 2.5. Greenhouse gas emissions such as carbon dioxide are off the charts at 1,923.78 tons per year. Now, I don't have any idea how many tons of this stuff I have to breathe in order to get cancer or until my kid gets COPD, and I don't particularly want to find out. But the fact of the matter is that it's already been stated there's 50 plus houses that is downwind from this place, and where's our quality of life if we can't even be outside raising our children? Other people have stated that there's daycare centers in this area. I think there's two within about a half a mile of here. I'm living in a house that was built in 1860. It was built by my mother-in-law's family. Her father was born in it, and my son is being raised in it, and we're going to raise our second child in it. But I am not going to risk my family's health, if this is something that's going to be going in, if the county can't do what's right here and right for the people living in the community, then we'll leave. And that's it. So I hope that this council will do the right thing when it comes to the appeal date. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Good evening, Monica Brooks, Wicomico County resident and president NAACP. I'm really so glad to see everyone here. We got to spread the word. I wanted you all to see the people that are literally right around that area. And we do want to thank you again to the Planning and Zoning for their cease and desist letter in this particular, on this particular project. And whatever we need to do, we're going to be there for the attempted appeals as well to prevent this liar, because that's what they are, shyster, from putting anything. They shouldn't even be allowed to even do business with Wicomico at this point, Amen. Quite frankly. And to do something so egregious or attempt something so egregious to the community and to insult our officials and leaders, department leaders, by doing a little, 3-card money with the permit over here, and I'm gonna move my project over here. But thank God for citizens. The citizens were out there taking pictures, video, going over there and continually bombarding MDE, bombarding MDA, bombarding the planning and zoning, PIAs, all of these things to do what needed to be done because it wasn't being done. It wasn't being done by the people who get paid to do it until the citizens stood up to say, hey, this needs to be done. And so I'm so grateful to see what happens when the community comes together. And so, like I said, whatever appeals that he's going to try to do, because we've heard that he's hired a very expensive attorney, but we are not afraid, and we shall not be moved.
It's criminal. It's criminal.
Criminal. I agree. So that is my comment on that. And lastly, thank you, Robert Taylor. Yes, I did know about the 2022 about the redistricting comment, which is why, if it wasn't addressed then, why did we believe it would be addressed now?
I'll send you my email.
I already know.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
George Brown, Wicomico County. I live probably an eighth of a mile from this place. I know the people that grew up there. This was a farm. There's 10 acres in there. Now, when he starts trucking this manure or whatever he's trucking in there, has anybody rode down Hickory Mill Lane lately? My God, it'll beat you to death. Now, if they're going to be trucking all this in there, it's not set up for that. Log Cabin Road's not set up for that. I don't know how he's going to get it in there. Where is he going to store it? How is he going to store it? If that stuff leaches into our system, we had a big paleo channel fight 2 or 3 years ago. Why are they going to let this guy come in and do this to our area? I don't know if it was the same people that tried to get this big 20-house chicken farm in there over top of the paleo channel. They wouldn't let that in there. Why would they allow this to come in there? This gentleman, I'd like to see the electrical wiring for this manure shed he has, because it's not set up for a manure shed. I see it every day. It's huge. Huge. This thing is an airplane hangar. And it's very offensive that he's going to try this. He's from Elkton, Maryland. Go back to Elkton, Maryland, and put it in your backyard. You know? So, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hi, Kristen Ellis, Wicomico County. I didn't have anything prepared today, but I want to just address this from 2 different points of view. I work with kids with special needs, and I work at some of these daycare centers that are very close to here. My kids have enough that they have to deal with. They don't need to worry about asthma and possible lung issues and cancer. And if their parents know about this, then they will be moving, as Mr. Olson said. And we will have a large amount of northern Salisbury and Wicomico County that will be a ghost town because there will be no children. Their parents will move them out, and no one will want to be there. So we're not helping Wicomico County, we're taking away from Wicomico County. I also want to bring your attention to, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm thinking about my parents as they age and get older, and about combining households. And I don't want them a half a mile from a place like that. So that means I will probably move, as will some other people. So I just implore you to think about, especially the children in this area, and their health as this goes on. Thank you.
Ms. Ellis?
It's coming apart. Hi, my name is Ray Dillon. I live on Adkins Road, been on Adkins Road for 35 years. I built the second house on Adkins Road on the dead end of it. I live on 4.7 acres, and I'm the second house from this, whatever it's going to be, the reclamation plant. And this guy here lives between me and that place. And at my age, I'm getting ready to go to assisted living probably. So that first will affect the property value. And the second thing is, I'm short of breath because I have the results of U.S. Navy's asbestos as a 4-year boiler tender on 2 Navy ships. And the older you get, the worse it gets. And the last thing I want to have to do is smell rotten chickens. And I'm only like 500 feet from that place. He's about 300. So then everything that I've been told, it's all been an illegal operation. The same people had a herd of goats that everybody had to go have somebody get them off of the road. They're eating the fields, they're standing in the road at the deli, and I think four other kind. But anyway, I'm talking to the crowd. I should be talking to you guys. I'm looking at you, and they're with me.
We heard you.
I'm preaching to the choir. But anyway, it all seems to be an illegal operation by someone who didn't bother to find out what you have to do, to do something like that. So anyway, that's all I can say. I'll be here each time you have one that has to do with the Adkins Road project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Any other public comments?
My name is Greg Talent, and I'm the neighbor to this chicken plant. And it's approximately 200 feet from my property. And I have a well that's 25 feet from the property line. And I've been living back there for 39 years dealing with the chicken houses. And we always get a northwest wind. And the way my house sits and the way this chicken farm place is, the northwest brings it right towards me constantly. And I'm kind of worried about my well because they've been throwing trash out there for a while. And there's hydraulic buckets. There's another bucket that is a cleaning solvent. That's the same kind of cleaning solvent probably has caused all the trouble in Camp Lejeune. And that's 85 feet from my well. Where this pile of trash is to my well is 85 feet. That's not good. So, it's not a good thing. I think Wicomico County had a black eye from the Porter Mill deal. You all don't need another black eye, you know what I mean? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, that concludes public comments. If I could, council comments? Shani, did you want to make a comment?
We have to unconnect the timer and get her connected in order for her to do her public comments. So if you just give us.
We'll take about a 2-minute recess here.
Well, no, it'll take them.
It's that quick, okay.
And there she
Okay.
is. She was saying something about you got cut off mid-sentence.
Shani, did you have any comments?
I want to say I'm glad the lawsuit's over, and I hope we have better communication with our community, and especially the minority community. And I also would like to see them come to some meetings to get educated on the issues that we are dealing with. And Happy New Year.
Thanks, Shani. Shane?
Yeah, I've got two things. One of them's short and one of them's going to be long, so I'm going to apologize. First thing, and I've had this problem before, and I found it disturbing tonight. Obviously, there's two big issues that have been raised here tonight, the biorefinery and the NAACP lawsuit. And I did notice that the county executive came in and stood in the doorway when the state's attorney was sitting here, when Judge Sarbanes was sitting here, and when Major Richardson was sitting here. I guess she wanted to make sure that went smoothly. As soon as that case was over, she, I guess, went back to her office. And to me, it's mind-blowing when you have a packed room like this with these citizen complaints, and she can come in here for that. Well, actually, we stand in the doorway, but she can't come in here and listen to what the public has to say. And I don't know what to say about it. I just don't like it. So that's the first one. That was the quick one. So now I'm going to talk about Mr. Baker and his peace orders. So just give you a little history. I'm a 25-year deputy sheriff, retired, no longer a deputy. I'm divorced, still living with my ex-wife while my home's being built. And on January 21st, I'm at home. And I can tell my wife ex-wife is rather upset more than normal. And she proceeds to tell me that somebody had called her and wanted my Life 360 location. For those of you that don't know what Life 360 is, that's so you can track somebody. Well, me being a retired deputy sheriff, I find that disturbing. I wanted to know who called her. She said, well, it was somebody from Worcester County Sheriff's Office. I said, well, why are they calling and trying to get my location? So finally, I get it out of her. She tells me it's Deputy Keith Newton with the Worcester County Sheriff's Office. So him and I, we've had a few issues. So I immediately did the right thing. I contacted Worcester County. Through conversation with my ex-wife, I found out that he had been talking to her several times a week. This particular time, he asked for my location. So I did the right thing. I said, I'm going to call the office. I'm going to report this to the command staff, let them handle it, be done with it. The command staff didn't want to get involved. They said, look, he's got a right to call your ex-wife. Nothing we can do about it. So then Shane says, I'm going to handle it. I sent him a text message. I said, listen, if you continue to contact and harass me and stalk me, I'm going to tell your wife some things that you're probably not going to want me to tell your wife. So then a battle starts to pursue on text, and he makes the comment. He goes, you know what? You're overdue for a peace order. And I told him via text, I said, just make sure when you go in there and swear under oath that you tell the truth, because you got to swear under oath to get a peace order. Every time you testify in court, you got to swear under oath. Because I knew I hadn't said anything threatening. I knew the criteria and what it takes to get a peace order, so I knew he wouldn't get it. Well, lo and behold, I'm going across the Bay Bridge on, let me make sure I get these dates right, on the 22nd. I start getting all these texts from all my friends, all these phone calls. man, you're in trouble. You got a peace order. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, it's all over Eastern Shore Undercover. It's all over. And I'm like, at first I think people are playing with me. I'm like, yeah, right. Well, then enough people start calling me, and I'm like, man, I must have a peace order. So people start sending me screenshots. You know, they're trying to locate Shane Baker and Worcester County Sheriff's offices and Wicomico. Kind of the way I took it, implying I'm on the run. Well, I called a certain commander at Worcester County Sheriff's Office. I said, I'm across the bridge. You're not going to be able to serve me tonight. I'm spending the night. I'm coming home in the morning. I've been made aware that there's a court date at 9 o'clock. I'll be there. The deputies can serve me when I walk in. Click up. Tried to enjoy my night, but steady phone calls. What's going on? This, that, the other. So, contact my attorney. He says, look, you probably need to be there in the morning for this hearing. That's the temporary. So I set my alarm clock for 4 o'clock. Wasn't expecting to come home that early. I go home, take a shower, go to district court. I'm there at 9 o'clock. Deputies walk in, serve me these orders. My attorney tells me, so as do other fellow law enforcement officers that work in the courthouse, said, look, 99% chance it's going to be granted. Most of the time they grant the temporaries until it goes to final. So they grant it. I get my final hearing and go to the final hearing, and lo and behold, the judge says, and I don't want to misquote it, that there was no evidence for either one of them. And what the disturbing part, or at least it disturbs me, probably will disturb you guys too, I noticed on the peace orders, it looked like the same handwriting on both. Now I'm not a handwriting analysis guy, and I can't say the same person filled out them both, but I picked up on that. I'm like, it looks like both the same person. And then, as I'm talking to my attorney, I'm like, some of these things in here aren't true. And he had to swear under oath, and he's a current deputy sheriff at Worcester County Sheriff's Office. And it came out in court. We had 6 or 7 hours worth of court, and I was able to produce every text. And he said, this was said, and I'm like, here's the proof. Look at it. So, all in all, that day, Mr. Earl Campbell is there to testify on Keith Newton's behalf, retired law enforcement. Bob Harris, who is the chief of police for the town of Pittsville, shows up in uniform, sits down beside Keith. Now, I wonder why he would do that. Looks good to have a cop sitting beside you. Bob Harris testifies against me. Didn't have anything really on me. Didn't matter. Who was the other one that, let's see. Well, they didn't even let Mr. Campbell testify. They said he had no information to provide. Bob Harris testified. Oh, Ben Parsons. Now, these guys are current, 2 of them, current deputy sheriffs. One of our biggest responsibility as a deputy sheriff is to know how to serve court paperwork. I've served probably over 500 peace orders and protective orders. And for you to go, you've got to meet a criteria to get that. You know, threats of violence or phone harassment, or you've got to hit these marks or you don't qualify. So we went through the court hearing, and you know, I was appalled that Bob Harris would come in there in uniform, not testifying for something for the town of Pittsville, not testifying for something in his role. He came there in uniform to testify with Keith Newton. Now, it comes out in court, and I know this is long-winded, but I want to make sure the public knows, because they knew about these orders, I want to make sure they know the truth. So it comes out in court that we wanted to know, why did Mr. Newton want to know my location? He says J.C. Richardson called him. J.C. Richardson's a former deputy. Says J.C. Richardson called me and wanted to know your location. Now, I want people to start connecting the dots, you know. So make a long, I'm trying to get to a point. So it's all over with. It's thrown out of court. But it's concerning that there was false information put in that peace order, and he swore under oath. This guy's considering making a run for sheriff of Wicomico County. Look at the connections. Mr. Campbell, again, and these are facts. I can prove this. Anything you all want to see, I can see. Mr. Campbell, campaign contributor to a certain individual. Mr. Richardson, campaign contributor to a certain individual. Mr. Richardson knows that Keith Newton's contacting my ex-wife and asked for my Life 360 location. Ladies and gentlemen, these are either retired cops or current deputy sheriffs or chiefs of police. And I find this very concerning that this happened. Now, I made a decision because I just wanted to get away from it. I know Worcester County Sheriff's Office knows about this. I know they know. And I was going to go down there and I was going to file a complaint because there's something in law enforcement called being bradied. So if I go to court and I get caught lying in court and they can prove it and I'm bradied, that always has to be disclosed every time I testify, and pretty much it ruins your police career because you're not a credible witness. So, but again, Worcester County can handle that. I'm not getting involved with it. I'm not going to file a complaint. I'm sick of it. I've been through enough. Mike Goldberg back there has been through enough. Several of these councilmen have been through enough, and it doesn't stop. I mean, prior to this, when I did work at Worcester County, I went through 2 internal investigations, both exonerated, connect the dots, and I'm not going to go into who filed and all that, but all these dots keep getting connected. They get connected, and it's despicable. So that's the truth. I got the interim served on me. I got the temporary served on me. And when it come down to the final hearing, the judge said, you have nothing, and told his wife the same thing. But it did cost me $4,000. That's what it cost me, because I wasn't going to go in there unprepared and try to defend myself. I mean, it's a big deal when you do this to someone, when you do it to anybody, but it's a really big deal if you do it to a retired police officer, because if that would have went through, I'm never going to get another job in law enforcement. Really makes you look bad. People start to think, well, he's a cop, or he's probably got guns. I mean, people, a lot of this stuff, I'm very, very disappointed in those law enforcement officers and what they did. That's just my take on it. And those are facts. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman Baker. Chip?
I promise not to be that long. I want to recognize Bruce Robson and Mark Engberg with the Wicomico Clean. I know we've talked about that a little bit tonight. This has been going on for a year and a month actually. I'm proud to have been a small part of it. Councilman Hastings was with us Saturday on the 1,600-pound litter pickup that only took 2 hours. Bags and bags and bags of trash. It was unbelievable. We're looking into 3 things. We'd like to see the executive put a full-time position in Public Works to coordinate the litter pickup effort. It's sad to say that litter is never going to go away. It's got to get picked up. So we'd like to see that position on the county working in coordination with a similar position in the city. Most of the litter is in the city because of the population density. So that makes sense. Bruce spoke about the bag ban. That's going to be a discussion, and there's a bottle bill up in Annapolis being discussed. So things are on the move. Proud to be part of the effort. Always enjoy working with Josh, even when it's 25 degrees outside. To Councilman Baker's point, in the past 2 years, I've seen at this point, countless examples of retaliation against council members, county employees whose opinions don't align with somebody else's. And it's a simple result of having a different opinion than somebody. And I was always told that you either discuss it and work it out, or you agree to disagree and you move on. But this retaliation is, I don't know, we're 3, 4, 5 peace orders. I've lost count. At one point, I thought peace orders were on sale because they were. I think they were 2 for $1 month. Buy one, get one free. There's accusations of bribery, conflict of interest, corruption, charter violations. Council members have had hate mail sent to their homes. The executive statement on that was, you need to take that with a grain of salt. Well, maybe so, until one of those letters contains something that, might not be so good. I think that was a pretty poor response from somebody in that position. Again, I think it's okay to have a different opinion than somebody. It's not okay to retaliate. I think the term lawfare was used earlier tonight. I agree with that. This biorefinery that came to my attention over the weekend, I've dealt with 8, 10 phone calls, several emails. Ironically, it has very similar characteristics to something that happened last year over in Del Mar, where an event happened and the public had no knowledge of it. They weren't involved in the decision. They weren't consulted. I believe I heard one of the speakers talk about property values. That should get everybody's attention. If you can't sell your house because nobody wants to buy it because of what is in your neighborhood or quarter mile up the street, that's something very real. I'm sorry you all are dealing with this, but now that we are aware of it, we'll make sure the right things are done and proper procedures are followed. Mr. President, I think to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I always want to thank the public for coming out, sharing their concerns. We're here every 2 weeks. You are welcome to come every 2 weeks, come up to the podium, talk about anything that's on your mind, whether it's up for discussion on the meeting agenda or not. And Ms. Laura will make sure you stick to your 3 minutes.
Mr. President, I do have one more thing to add to, since this was so important. Do you mind?
Fine.
That's fine.
Jeff, you're done?
I'm done, yes, sir.
Laura, could you put up on the screen the...
I just took it off. I'd have to get.
So I meant to say
We can go back, Shane.
No,
Give her time to put
I'll
up
read it.
everything.
I'll just read it.
Okay.
It'll only take a couple.
Okay, all right. Just come back to me.
Joe?
Let Joe go.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming in tonight and expressing your concerns about what's going on over there. I heard 2 comments tonight about this bribery thing. I was kind of hoping that was in the past. It's almost comical, really, what happened. But I do want to explain it for the folks in the room and the folks that's watching on TV that hadn't seen it before. It's kind of like a little rerun, I guess, unfortunately. John and myself were at an event one night, and a member of one of our local fire departments came by and wanted $20 a piece for challenge coins, and we purchased those. Well, the next meeting come along, and this individual and another individual that were friends of the county executive supporters got up to the podium and it demanded that I resign and John resign, and we weren't doing this and we weren't doing that. I can't remember everything that was said, but in a vain attempt to be a comedian, which I shouldn't have done, when this one individual walked out, said, John, I guess if we'd bought more challenge coins, maybe she wouldn't have picked on us as bad. Well, that did it. The next meeting, they came in and made the comments that I should be charged with bribery because of my comment, and demanded a investigation. Okay. So we had three attorneys, Mr. Benson, Mr. Wilbur, and state's attorney looked into it. There's no basis for any of it, you know. So that's pretty much the story there. But it just goes back to what Shane and Jeff was talking about, and I don't know. I don't think a couple council members haven't experienced it yet, but I can tell you something. You better walk lightly if you cross her path.
Any comments?
You got it, Laura?
Ms. Hurley?
Which one would you like?
The Sean MC. One other thing I brought up, Chief Bob Harris earlier, you know, one would think, well, why don't you file a complaint on him? I'll show you how politics works. That was put on social media. That person, that's Bob's boss. This was before I had my final peace order. So why call Bob's boss? What do you think he's going to tell me?
Isn't that the individual that's filed to run for county council too?
I've heard that he has said.
Yeah.
What is his title? Is it town commissioner?
Town commissioner, but he's also Ocean City police officer.
Oh yeah, he is. He's also a police officer, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what he put up against me before I ever went to my final hearing. So, hey, I'm shooting in the dark, filing a complaint with him, right? But that's all I got.
All right. Josh?
I'll be quick.
Thanks, Shane.
First of all, just say, of course, thank you all for being here. I do appreciate that. This may sound really bad because I think you all are listening to, we got peace orders, we got all sorts of being trashed online, got lawsuits. Yeah.
And I don't think you've been picked on yet.
I'm in season 6.
He's not over.
You all would have been here other nights if you knew it'd been this entertaining, right? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I say all that, of course, just to be able to say that we all need to double down. I say not just us, but I mean across the country, across the globe, we need to double down on better governance, better systems, integrity. Hell, have some class for Pete's sakes. You know, that's what I want us to all do, and all no matter where you work, what you do, what party you're part of, no matter what. Let's try to be. Let's not try to be better. Let's be better from here on out. I digress on that. I also want to say, of course, thanks for the folks. We are in a community with a ton of folks who actually love to go out and volunteer. I mentioned Mr. Robson and others who, Wicomico Clean, 1,600 pounds of trash just in 2 hours of work. You know,
That's great.
And by the way, we want more people to come out and join and to continue that effort. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for all that hard work and for continuing that direction. And then lastly, I know not all the folks got to actually raise their hands that are here regarding the biorefinery. So if anyone is here, then you care about the biorefinery issue, can you just please raise your hand? Okay, I just want that noted. I appreciate it. Thank you. I want that noted how much everyone here cares about this. You know, we worked really hard on the county council the term before this. After the whole situation with DAF Tank, we worked on this for years. I mean, literally years, to try to put better systems in place so that we could block any situation like this in the future. And that's what's helped on a bit. But we need to, of course, make sure that we're filling the gap, and that and I want everyone here to know who is facing that issue. Please know that we are listening. We care. We are going to be on top of it. We try to. And I also want to shout out Monica Brooks of the NAACP. She was actually the very first person that I heard bring this up. It was, maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago, whatever, and then to actually stay on top of it. And you've been very active in organizing. Regardless, going forward in our communities, we need folks to be able to speak up, to look out for each other, and to have some class. So I really appreciate it all, and thank you all.
Very good. Under presidential comments, Shane, I'd like to thank you for your comments, very frank comments. I think it needed to be said and very well spoken, so I appreciate that. In reference to one of the comments that were made tonight, it was made as far as the Crown, that there was a 17-year-old that sold alcohol to a 14-year-old. Wasn't quite that. I believe that the individual who did make the sale was 19 years old. Not quite exactly sure of the individual that made the purchase, but she was underage. She was not 14, but she was underage. I just wanted to make that clarification as well. As reference to Hickory Mill Lane, very concerned about what you mentioned. I think we are going to rope it in as far as this project as a whole. I really do. And I agree. You know, if you've lied to the county, if you've lied to the state of Maryland, I don't know how you're going to be obligated. I don't care what you appeal. I don't know how you can possibly have a leg to stand on. So we would want to pursue that to the fullest extent. And Ms. Brooks, we appreciate you bringing it to our attention as well earlier, as Josh stated. But also the trash that you mentioned, that is a big concern, as immediate concern. So we will certainly contact Planning and Zoning and have somebody go out there, Mrs. Hurley, if you don't mind going through the proper procedures to make sure that they re-review that, because no, we do not want any type of chemicals being spilled at all in that general vicinity. If they maybe have overlooked that, they may be more worried about the building than the process and the actual trash. So, yeah, I understand. Yeah, yes, yeah, I get it. So, anyway, I just wanted to address those individual concerns. Entertain a motion from Council. Hang on a second.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Where are
I
we?
apologize.
Yes, Bob.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, sir.
There were a couple comments made with regard to Hickory Mill that were talking about an appeal, and quote unquote, I hope the council does the right thing.
Right.
Just to be clear, if I understand this correctly, this is a zoning matter. If there's an appeal, it's going to need to go to the Planning Commission or to the Board of Zoning Appeals. It's not before the county council. And I just want to make sure that the public understands that.
And there will be proper notification on that process, Bob?
There would be a required, I would assume that the property will be posted with a date and time for the hearing, is the way it would normally be handled.
Hearing's on March 27th.
The hearing's on March 27th. Now, as the process works, can they notify the commission and say, we want to be notified of any type of meetings or discussions in reference to this property?
Do you know if it's in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals or in front of the Planning Commission?
It's on the schedule for March 27th, but they have not received a request for the appeal yet. They have till the 28th of February to submit the request.
I don't know Mr. President, I apologize, I don't know the answer, but somebody could ask somebody in the Planning Commission.
Well, it seems like a very organized group, so if you make sure that you spread the word and let them know as to what the future may hold. So, with that being said, entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work sessions, followed by a closed work session pursuant to the general provisions, Article Section 3-305B1, to discuss a personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals to protect the confidentiality of the individual. Second. Motion, say all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Legislative meeting has been adjourned. Appreciate everyone's comments. Questions? I'm going to take just about a 3-minute recess, if we could, because I know we have people waiting. Reconvening is Wicomico County Legislative Session 2025-03 for February 4th, 2025. The first item on the open work session, I'll tell you in 1 second, is capital improvement program. We have emergency services here. If you could state your name for the public record, thank you very much.
Lorenzo Cropper, Director.
Pamela, Finance Director.
Good to have you here. If you'd like, Mr. Cropper, we'll give you the floor.
Actually, I'm going to let Ms. Olin go
Ms.
first.
Olin, we'll give you the floor. Thank you.
So there are 5 projects listed on the CIP for emergency services. 3 of them are for 2026. One is a continuation of a project that we started in 2025 for the radio consulates for dispatch at $135,000. An upgrade to our radio cybersecurity for $244,000, and then our main generator for the 911 system is 8 years old. We feel it's prudent to replace that generator to make sure that our 911 system stays operational. The other projects is the mobile command unit, which, yes, it is getting up there in age. We keep pushing that thing back, but there is no currently funding anywhere but county funds, and we do not feel that we have the availability in 2026 to undertake that project. And then, as council may remember, the conversation was to attach on to the public safety building, the new public safety building, for emergency services to move there and ultimately move out of the correctional facility. And so that is in the planning stages for 2028 and 2030.
Josh.
I just want to bring it up. I guess I still don't, I've had people ask me, and I actually don't have a good idea, a good way to answer them. Why is it that we're going to have a new building separate for this work, for the community emergency services, 24 million over those years? I think as it's been brought to me a couple of times, folks asking, well, we just put up the giant building there. The sheriff's office, we kept raising and spending more money and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. How is it that we can't fit some of this in there together? So I didn't have a good answer, so I figured I was like, oh, I'll ask the people who know.
The original plans for the facility was to combine and do them all at the same time. Ultimately, the cost process for doing them at the same time was not financially feasible. Yes, the cost escalated for the public safety building. Ultimately, we feel it is the right course of action to move the main 911 out of the correctional facility and attach it to the public safety building and have that be the main location for our facility. Again, I was not in this role when the decision was made to split the two projects apart, but ultimately, due to the cost factor, it was not financially feasible at the point in time we built. And my understanding is the building and the plans that are currently built for the public safety building, it fits the sheriff's office, and that's it. And those were the plans that were built.
And just for clarity, I guess, how many employees or what does this look like as far as what would go into that?
Right now, we are approximately 30.
And a lot of that $22 million is going to be, I mean, yes, there's infrastructure costs to build the facility, but there's also a lot of equipment costs to move a 911 facility. Currently, our 911 facility is in the correctional facility, and our backup is in the old sheriff's office. Yes, Naylor Mill is not that far from those two locations, but it still does take it off of the same campus instead of having them in two buildings right side by side. If there was a natural event that happened, having our backup 911 and our 911 on the same campus within pretty much a stone's throw of each other is not the best planning. And so this is also hopefully protecting us for the future in case of a natural disaster.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problems with this at all. Just as we always try to be wary of, there's about $530,000 in pay-go here, and it's very, very concerned about how much we're putting.
And that's why, again, the $1.5 million would have been either pay-go or debt, and that's why we had to postpone that one. Ultimately, that vehicle is old and is aging, and there are newer, but it still does work. And so we made the decision that at this point in time, the other three things, and this was a conversation with Lorenzo, that the other three things were more of a priority.
Good. Yeah, I understand 100%. Any other questions? Yeah, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cropper. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next capital improvement program, workstation zone corrections. Evening.
Good evening.
If you could, from my left to right, just your name and title, please.
Chris Tyler, Director.
Pamela and Finance Director.
Jack Sheevil, Maintenance Supervisor.
Eric Dickerson, Accountant.
Thank you very much.
So the current CIP, it has a continuation project in 2026 for the final phase of flooring upgrade. We're making evaluations on that and making sure that we can move forward with that. But that is the current plan, is that this would be the last year of that plan. Then we have a multi-year project. We came to council month or two ago, asking for approval to submit for a grant. Putting in the CIP, it would be our share of those upgrades. Hopefully, we could get more from the state. At this point in time, my understanding from Chris is that we're still waiting to hear. We don't have any answers. Again, we will keep monitoring that situation as we come forward with the budget. And then ultimately, we met with corrections and asked them very specifically about the next 3 projects and which were more important. The fan coil units, the fence and courtyard, and the chilled water pumps. And ultimately, the fence and the chilled water pumps were higher priority to do in fiscal 26 versus fiscal 27. And then the 27 and 28 are kind of placeholders at the moment for continuing discussions as to what to do with the old sheriff's facility, because it will be a building that ultimately we will need to maintain a portion of it to be backup 911 for the moment. But we will also have available space, and it is right on campus with the correctional facility. And so we could possibly free up some space within the correctional facility for some things that need to take place.
My only concern with the building expansion, we want to support you 100%, but I'm not even going to really look at 24 so much. But even with last year's CIP, the total expenses were about $5.4 million through the entire 5-year program, and now that has increased to over $7 million. And I'm just really concerned at the rate that the corrections building expansion has been increasing year after year with each CIP, even though we're planning it through to fiscal year 2030. I'm afraid that the $7 million that we're totally looking for through fiscal year 30 will be $10 million or $12 million, because exponentially it is increasing astronomically.
Yeah. So currently, what is in the plan is 100% funded by us. If we get this grant, if we get this grant, it also will mean we'll be able to speed up the timeline. So applying for the grant gives us the hopeful opportunity to speed up the timeline, thus hopefully reduce the overall cost, because we will be able to do it in less fiscal years. At this moment, we put in the worst case scenario, and that is us funding 100% of it over the next 5 years. These are things that are required by the state, by laws that the state has passed associated with correctional facilities. So these are things that we do need to keep on our radar and keep moving forward with. But again, we have put them in at the worst case scenario with us funding 100%, and hopefully we get better news than that.
And I agree. I mean, I understand what pressures corrections is under. So I'm nothing I think would come to this table if it wasn't extremely relevant. I'm just hoping that, with the cost from PAYGO of $528,000 this year alone, that it will be sustainable by the time we get to 2030, because if not, we don't want a situation similar to Barron Creek Road, where so much investments were made that delays were incurred, and then all of a sudden the initial investment is worthless because whatever you've gone through in architectural engineering is no longer valid.
We put it for fiscal year 26 because that's the grant that we applied for.
Okay.
But I think when we talked about the letter of interest or the letter of support from y'all, we said that most likely we were probably going to get pushed to fiscal year 27 anyway, so it's going to take us out another year. But
and again, as I've stated, this is a plan. This is what we had at the point in time when we submitted this in December. When we have more information, when we create the budget, if we have more information, that would adjust what we would put in for fiscal 26 as actual money.
Right, because 26 does go into the actual budget.
Correct.
But this doesn't say anything. This fiscal year 26 with this $528,000 doesn't really reference other sources. It specifically does say PAYGO.
Correct. Correct, and that's what I had previously stated, is we put in worst-case scenario that we would have to do all of it. If ultimately there's indications from the state that if we push this a year, or if we do a small chunk this year, a smaller dollar amount than 528, and that we could get something in 27, 28, we will take those into evaluation while we're doing the budget.
When emergency services moves out of there, would that become your space?
It should become our space, but it's not space eligible for inmate living conditions. It's on the administration side.
Like admin space or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Whole building would be your office? Just joking.
No.
Okay, a little humor, it's 9 o'clock.
Notice the finance guy laughed when you said that.
Yeah, he did he?
I might move him up there.
There you go.
Room with a
It's a
view.
matter of record.
Okay.
There's your office.
Absolutely.
Anybody else for questions? All right, well, thank you so much for waiting. I know we held you off for so long, but
Thank you all.
thanks again. Good seeing everybody.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Good seeing you, buddy. Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is general services.
Can you make sure he states his full name for the record?
I don't even know who he is. to be
I don't
quite honest
either.
with you.
I don't recognize him.
Mr. Matthews, sir?
Good thing.
In that, yeah. Always good to stay below the radar, huh?
Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Certainly.
Pete Matthews, General Services Supervisor.
Good to see you, Pete. Haven't seen you in a while.
Thank you. It's been a while, yes, sir.
No kidding.
So as there's 4 projects on this, we have been, for the last several years, putting building evaluation surveys to allow us to have funds available for requests that departments have to look at different systems, look at things associated with their buildings, and general services is the appropriate budget because we don't yet know which building, which department, that kind of thing. That's why we put this in here. The old courthouse elevator is in need of an upgrade, and thus we put that in for fiscal '26. We have we had originally, the original request was for the government office building chiller replacement and the old courthouse courtroom renovations to be in fiscal '26, but due to financial constraints, primarily associated with Fruitland Primary, we felt that we did not have the funding available to put those all in fiscal '26. So in discussions with Pate and the administration, we decided that the elevator was the most important of the 3, and then the other 2 were spaced out between 27 and 28.
Anybody? Pete, the only question I have, which I think I have every year, is that whether or not we ever reach out, or maybe through Lori Carter, I'm not sure, but with the old courthouse and the improvements that you're making, it's an elevator, correct? Is there any way that we can look out for any type of assistance?
I'll have to check with
from
Lori.
historical, as a historical building?
Probably the elevator itself probably would not be able to qualify, but
I get it.
we can keep looking for the old courthouse room that we have. So again, that would be probably something that would satisfy a more historical nature. And so we will put that on Lori's radar
Yeah,
to be looking at.
She's new, could,
Is there any way that, but I highly doubt an elevator would be
no,
considered.
I understand that too, yeah.
Because we want to modernize it and they don't want modern. So we want to upgrade the elevator. We are not looking to make it the old,
Well, we could get the old-fashioned
The
crank.
physical appearance of the elevator won't change. It's
Right.
all control and mechanical work.
Okay, understood.
You won't notice anything has changed with the elevator.
Okay, very good, very good. Yes, Josh?
Put like pulleys and ropes in there.
It's actually a traction elevator. It does have wire rope.
Okay.
Wow.
It's not hydraulic.
So maybe it will qualify.
well, we will ask the question.
Josh?
I think I bring this up again and again, and I think it's worth noting, and I think it's important. There's no security in this building.
In this building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I've worked on comp plans and worked with cities and counties across the entire shore and different parts of the state. You've got municipalities with, very minimal, couple thousand people, and they have, you walk through a metal detector, you have, there's a sheriff's office or a municipal folks, somebody there. For us to be the largest county on the shore and to not have any of these kinds of components, just turn on your TV. I really don't. I don't recommend that. But if you did, you'd probably, you always hear about how awful things are as far as people shooting judges, getting upset at meetings, they're whatever MSNBC or Fox News tells them to think. I just think we're in a different time. We need to be moving in the direction of having a robust, updated security. And I think right now, there's basically no security. And I've said that for 6 years now. I don't know what point in time do we have to wait till something gets bad. And we had the issue last year, a judge was shot, here in Maryland, it's always happening. So I would love to have that into our CIP or into some sort of component. I think not just for our health or our well-being in general, but obviously, there's enough folks that come through here, and that we're at a point where things can be contentious enough, and we're an important enough county that we really do need to be real thoughtful about our security system and the security situation, especially at least for council meetings.
Any questions, comments?
Do you have I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Number one, it would be extremely expensive, and number two, it would almost have to be a new department.
Well, I can kind of comment on that. Working for Worcester County in judicial services, they also cover the government center. So that's a post. So you probably wouldn't have to do a whole new department. You might have to pay for one new position for the deputies at the courthouse, and one of them would be assigned here from 9 to 5 or whatever. We also took turns doing it down at Worcester, and there's a metal detector at each door, and so you would need 2 deputies.
That's way out of my wheelhouse. Way out.
I will, I've taken a note, and we'll go from there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pete, good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Good to see you, Pete.
You as well, sir.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Same to you. Thank you.
Coming.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is an update on cannabis funding. We have Ms. Stephanie King, Director of Local Management Board, and guests. You could start at my left. Thank you.
Andrew Illuminati, County Attorney's Office.
Stephanie King, Director, Local Management Board.
Miles, Chair, Local Management Board.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for waiting for so long. Ms. King, we'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Did you guys get the email that I sent to Laura yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we've had 2 rounds of RFPs for the cannabis, or the Community Reinvestment Repair Fund. The first RFP was released on September 3rd, 2024, and was closed on September 24th, 2024. During that round, we received 2 proposals. One from the Child and Family Center for $99,915. The second from Recovery Resource Center for $75,464. Both proposals were scored by L&B board members and voted on September 30th, 2024. And both proposals were approved by this council on November 5th, 2024. Program updates. As of December 31st, the Recovery Resource Center has spent $6,165.44. Their January financial reports are not due to my office until February 10th.
Are they required to spend that within the fiscal year?
So, yes. So they actually, from when their MOUs were effective until June 30th of 2024, they have to spend the money that they
put in their proposal.
Were awarded, right?
Were awarded, yes. The Child and Family Center has spent $38,803.94. And again, their January financial reports aren't due to me until February 10th. As far as their performance updates, as of January 31st of 2025, the Recovery Resource Center has served 44 clients from the Tier 4 and Tier 5 areas. 90% of those clients were successfully connected with and able to obtain stable housing. 90% of those clients also maintained uninterrupted sobriety. The RRC also has 7 people who have almost completed their peer recovery support training, which will allow them to become fully certified within the state of Maryland and allow them to become employable at a higher income level. And they also have 2 upcoming trainings, Narcan training and financial literacy. The Child and Family Center, they have scheduled and completed testing for 12 children. They did their feedbacks in January, so we'll have that data at our next quarterly update. They've offered 150 intervention services to 20 children living in the Tier 4 and Tier 5 areas. And their referral sources include DSS, pediatricians, therapists, and psychiatrists. 2 children have been referred out to follow up neurological testing. Our second round of RFPs was released on October 3rd, 2024, and was closed October 24th, 2024. We received 6 proposals, but only awarded 5. That was for Shore Legal Access, Habitat for Humanity, Lead for Life, Minari's Dream Alliance, and Wicomico County Recreation, Parks, and Tourism. The proposals were scored by the LMB board members and voted on December 12th, 2024. The proposals were approved by this council on January 9th, 2025. Those vendors have not submitted any financial reports, and we do not have any performance updates as of right now. Our current process, there's a link that was included, and that's our tier map that our vendors use to determine if their clients fall in that Tier 4, Tier 5 area. Each vendor is only eligible to be awarded 1 program per fiscal year. And then would you like me to go through what the process is?
Well, my question would be, even if maybe the individuals being served aren't in Tier 4 and Tier 5, are there different areas in the county where services could be met for individuals who would still qualify for this type of assistance?
So under this grant, the only people that reside in Tier 4, Tier 5 areas would qualify.
This grant, or you mean when you say this grant, you mean this entire grant?
The entire funding.
This Community Reinvestment Fund.
But what if there are those in need that don't specifically live in a Tier 4 and Tier 5? I mean, it's not like whatever poverty there might be or needs there might be are limited to only Tier 4 or Tier 5 geographically.
You want to take?
That's unfortunately the way the state legislation was written. I think one of a good project would be a mobile project that reaches out to those that live in a lower tiered or higher tiered, depending on how you're viewing it, and bringing resources directly to them. But based on the way the state law is written, it has to be targeted at these specific communities.
So the organization could be mobile, but if their main office is based in 4 or 5?
That was something that could be considered strongly.
Joe?
So
there's a lot of, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, maybe you can follow up on this. So some of this program is to help the homeless, right? Some of these programs helps the homeless.
If a vendor applies for that type of service, yes.
Okay, well, if they're homeless, how do they live somewhere?
It's all done by identification. The state identified the 4 tiers. And the vendor, the applicant, has to be able to show that they're providing the service in that area. So I understand what you're saying. We're not going to have a fixed address for
So they have
homeless
to
resident.
identify that they are in that tier,
They would be in that geographic area. The tiers aren't by the financial level of the persons. It's by the financial overall financial picture of the area in that tier.
So I see this first year, I guess we'll call it the first year, whatever. It's got $1.6 million. It's more than likely it's going to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
As they say, it's going to be huge at some point in time. You demand financials to show where they spend the money. Do you do audits? Are you going to be doing audits on how this money is distributed?
Yes.
And
So-
how will those audits be? How will those audits be? How will you designate who gets audited? I know you're not going to be able to audit everybody in 1 year or whatever, but you got to pick and choose. How are you going to do that?
So, we have a community program coordinator who goes and does site visits. And for a site visit, he would go and sometimes for HIPAA violations, we can't have identifying information for their clients. But we have asked them to to attach like client numbers because they have to prove that the clients that they're serving live in these tier 4, tier 5 areas. So when my community program coordinator goes out, he looks over these, and he does 2 site visits a quarter.
That's not a financial audit.
That's not a financial. That's not a
That's an
financial audit.
operational type thing, yeah.
So as for the financial audit, we've reviewed their financials, and they have independent audits that they submit.
They have audits or you have audits?
They have audits that they submit. As far as the audit process
you
from
all-
us,
you all don't do
we don't do
audits?
audits.
The state will audit the local management board as the grant facilitating entity.
They won't audit each one of these groups that you're giving money to?
So no, we receive financial reports from all of these organizations. So when our office is audited, we submit all of the things that have been submitted to us by them.
And I would say, just to add to that.
Sure.
Monthly, there are reviews of all expenditures by the staff in Wicomico Partnership with Children and Families Local Management Board, and all expenditures must be supported by the appropriate documentation, or the funding is not released or is not available. And that's standard practice. And then the board itself, we receive these monthly updates and reviews and have the opportunity to look into anything that would be of any type of question as well.
I guess for my benefit, I don't know, I mean, I know who Wicomico Recs and Parks is, and I know who Habitat for Humanity, but I don't know who Minery's, is it
Minery's Dream Alliance.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. You know, a lot of these I don't know. Can you send an email at some point in time explaining who these groups are and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. when you get a
And
chance.
there could be forthcoming with more cycles of RFP. There could be more entity names with which you're not
Oh, I
familiar,
bet.
because part of the.
Lots of people with their hand out for
Right.
this
Part-
one.
Well, part of the energy behind the grant and part of the requirement at the state level is to try to engage additional persons and groups within the community who will help to build up the benefits within the community. So there may be new groups or groups that just haven't, or an individual could be that just hasn't come before you in terms of name, but
They don't know you're there yet,
statewide,
but
it's
they'll put it
supposed to
down.
be growing the capacity within the tiered areas for service.
Mr. Illuminati, I guess I would ask you this question. As far as this funding, you know, we're sitting here, we'll be wringing our hands soon over the budget. I made a comment here a few weeks ago about could some of this money go to our first responders? And then we're sitting here tonight talking about things that need to be done at the detention center. Can there be some kind of a guide? I know there's guidelines, and maybe we need to contact our delegates to get things changed. I don't know whether we can, about the use of this money, because I think there's some things that we could use some of this money for that would benefit the tiers, you know.
Tier 4, Tier 5.
Tier 4, Tier 5, you know. Is there any chance to know if there's anything else we can use it for other than these groups of people? I mean, can we use this to support the detention center? Can we use this to support the first responders? Is there any chance other than getting state law changed?
No.
It's all through legislation.
Pardon me?
It's all through legislation, so.
So
And-
that's where we'd have to go with it.
Just to add on to that, the Tier 4, Tier 5 areas are areas that were disproportionately policed during, before cannabis was decriminalized. So those areas, this money is going back into those communities that were overly policed. So none of the money can go towards anything related to law enforcement.
Well, there's other first responders other than law enforcement.
Absolutely, I just wanted to
Maybe the
clarify that.
council ought to consider at some point in time contacting our legislators to see if they, it might take a year or two, but, there's a lot of, this is going to grow, and there's a lot of things this could be used for, as far as our detention center for one, or, fire departments. Fire departments are burdened by the use of drugs.
That would be something that'd be really helpful, is if equipment to respond to overdoses, if this money could be used for that.
That's a good idea.
That would be something or to detect if someone's having an overdose.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that would be an ideal use. But when we ran one of a request like that came, it was ran through the health department to see if it would qualify, and under the initiative, it won't, unfortunately. So
It's going to have to be legislation at the state level.
because this just comes from the state, and then all the process of how the money's awarded is a county decision, but who can benefit is a state decision.
You're right, Joe. There could possibly be some avenues, but we could expand on it. I agree. To benefit, for greater benefit. Josh, you had a question?
Yeah, what was the 96,000 for Parks and Rec? Can you refresh my memory on that?
Parks and Rec, 96,380, and that was for programs for kids that reside in those areas. It's almost like summer camp, but it's before summer. It's just athletic programs that they're running at different parks.
Okay. Well, I guess the only quick comment I did see, I saw, of course, in the program updates, the Recovery Resource Center with financial literacy and Narcan training, others. When we first adopted this, or we first looking at this, I think the comment I made then is I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, how we're using it, that it's transformational, not transactional, and that the work is changing the scenario and not just given, hey, look, here's a new basketball court, or here's a new this or that, so I guess as we go forward, I don't know how you're trying to attract or try to find new folks to apply for these funds or new organizations, but I think the more that we can continue to have that part, how are we transforming the situation? How are we transforming their lives? How is this a positive and not a one-off kind of thing? I think the better. So let's take it or leave it, but yeah. Thank you.
Full agreement from the board, definitely.
I believe there's discussion in Annapolis raising the tax on cannabis to 15%. What would that do to this calculation? Would we get a higher percentage that we currently get, or do we?
Absolutely. So if the tax revenue goes up, this is a fixed number that the Office of Social Equity calculated based on cannabis arrests. And so that number, it correlates to, if the tax revenue goes up, this number will go up. What may not go up is the tax revenue derived from cannabis sales that then comes back to the county. So it's a percentage of a percentage of a percentage. And what's really disproportionate, to put it into perspective, I think to date there's been over 1.5 million from the CRRF. Sales and tax use, it's barely $50,000. So in over a year, barely $50,000 has been generated for money that could be used to fund anything. But 1.5 million has come from the Office of Social Equity. And the goal is to help these communities regardless of the source, but the 1.5 is hamstrung and it's tied to community-based initiatives. And the one is that council can appropriate and spend as it deems to benefit these communities. So it would accomplish both Councilmember Hastings and Councilmember Holloway's goal of putting it back into the community, but with more discretion. But the money's handcuffed that only certain entities can, in certain areas, can benefit from it.
Yeah, unusual maps, very unusual maps as far as.
Has Epoch Dream Center reached out to you?
Not for this funding, they haven't.
Because Josh, I believe, you and I toured that facility. They work with underserved kids, right?
Yeah, and they
They're in the
actually
tier.
grab folks. I guess that's another important question. So if they're doing work like EPOC or others used to, I don't know if they still do or whatever, but for organizations that are going and busing into certain communities and then taking out of those tiers, quote unquote, would they still qualify?
If the clientele they were serving were
As
from
long as
those
the client-
tiers.
Okay.
Hebron is not in 4 or 5.
Yeah, but I guess if they
I get it.
pick folks up from those areas, yeah.
It would have to be a certain
Gotcha.
calculation on that.
Thank you.
Something I should probably already know, Andrew, but what is I'm sure there's a percentage to administer these funds for the county itself. Is it like a 10% of the gross or 5% of the gross?
The fund may be used for administrative fee expenses. So that's one thing Stephanie and I spoke about the other day, is she's talking about the burden it's placing on L&B.
Sure.
They're qualified to do it, but if you have 1.5 million and we're down to, I think, 1.2 million now.
I think it's 1.1 million is what we have left in there after we have awarded the 550,000. And that was as of the end of November. So if we're getting deposits in there every month, every quarter, by the time that we're putting out an RFP for FY26, we're not doing any more rounds for FY25. But by the time we put that out, because our cap is 25,000 to 100,000 per program. So if we have 1.1 million just going off that, and we say we're going to put out 11, or we're going to award 11 programs.
Right.
That's amazing, but also that's 11 programs on top of the other programs that we already are fiscally watching and program measurements and making sure that they're meeting all of their goals. And I have an office of 5. So
Yeah, I think if you're bringing in 1.6 million, you ought to be able to have at least 165,000 for administrative purposes.
And
10%, right?
I would agree. I mean, I recommend Stephanie that when she prepares her budget for fiscal year 26, acknowledge that the money's coming from this fund,
Right.
then target employees and to be able to help her administer this.
Can you do that? Can you take this money for admin?
It says the fund may only be used for funding community-based initiatives, funding community-based, or that serve low-income communities, disproportionately impacted areas, and any related administrative expenses.
So, I mean, the money you're paying your board now, I mean, you'd have to increase that without a doubt.
I'd say multiply it by a factor of 10. Fund 0 is 0.
Needless to say, you're going to have more groups coming forward. Do you do any kind of background check on whoever the principals are on this to make sure there's no history there with ill-gotten gains, I guess, at some point in time?
I will say, while you're coming up with the language for that, but the RFP process is actually through the county. It's following the same the RFP development and gathering and assessment as would be for any other program. And I'm looking to Andrew because I'm probably not using the exact terminology I should, but I do know we're very consistent with
If
that.
John Criminal comes in and he's heading up one of these groups, okay, would you find out that he has a history of problematic history, I guess, handling money? I guess that's a good way to put it.
I feel like at that point, he would not be in good standing with
Pardon me?
the State Department of Taxation, and they have to submit that they're in good standing when they submit their RFP.
In good standing of what?
With the with the State Department of Taxation,
Oh,
that they're a
I'm not
registered
talking
business.
about taxation now. I'm not talking about that.
No,
I'm
but you have to
talking
be a
about criminal.
registered business, so you have to have an LLC, corporation.
You
in
can
some-
have all that and still have a history.
You can, and I mean, it's very possible you could have a, reformed gang member who's been clean for 10 years, wants to start a program, and would qualify under this if he serves a certain community, and that's a possibility.
But then it's up to the board whether they approve him or not.
It's up to the board, and then also the double check as it comes back to council.
Yeah.
Right.
And, when the resolutions are submitted, it has the entire packet that comes to LMB for council's complete review. So, I mean, everything is there for double checking to make sure that these are appropriate individuals to be awarded.
I have one other question because I know it's getting late. The first round was September 3rd. The second round was October 3rd. Is it going to be September and October every year, or is it going to be something else? Another
No.
rounds? What
So
determines?
we try to do it so that their program will be starting the fiscal year, July 1st. So we'll be putting out the RFPs probably beginning of April so that we can get them out, get the proposals back in, have the board vote on it, be able to come to the last council meeting in June, get them approved, and then they can start services July 1st.
So will there be some type of, it's all new, so
It
will there
is.
be some type of consistent processes like in April and then in September? Or are there going to be, what are you looking at, quarterlies, or how would you?
So because of how long the RFP process is, and we
Yes.
want them to be able to use their funding for an entire fiscal year, we're gonna open it up the same way that we do our CPA, which is our big grant that we get from the state. So we'll open it up in April, so that way we can award, and then we'll award however many the board will likely decide. Right now, like I said, we have 1.1 million. So if we opened it up and said that we were going to award 11 programs, we know the money's already there. But we would only do one round, so they would have from July 1st till June 30th.
Are you emailing notices out to people who are on you have a mailing list or whatever?
So, yeah, so the procurement office will send me an email and they'll send me what they sent out last year. They'll ask for any updates. We keep track of people that call throughout the year that want to be added to this list, but it also is posted on the county website when it's open.
We had 2 rounds this year because there were so few respondents the first time, and there was so much funding available.
Sure.
That's why there was a September and an October. And like you said, this was the first year just entering into it, so we're hoping the more the word gets out, the more respondents we'll have.
Like Joe says, it will come. Any other questions? Very thorough. Really appreciate this because this is new to everybody.
Also, I was not sure exactly, because it is new, I wasn't sure exactly what information you wanted. If there was anything additional that you would like on the next one, if you want to just let me know, I'll make sure I include it.
I think you got it tonight, what we're kind of looking for, right?
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. Next item we have on the agenda is the amended letters of support. Those 3 letters of support that were amended, one was Sunday hunting time restrictions. Of course, that has now been, request has been put in to repeal it. We also have the alcohol beverages, which we're all familiar with, in the reference to the temporary to-go event. And then the third one is the athletic and event facility license. Mrs. Hurley, would you guide us on this, please?
Sure. So basically, you have revised letters in your brief book. Actually, Delegate Adams' office has called and has requested updates for these letters. The only thing that has changed is that when the letters were originally submitted, we had a draft number. It was just a bill draft number. They had not been assigned a House bill number yet. So all we're doing is changing the House bill number. And their office did call today asking for the status of this, and I told her I would send them to her first thing in the morning.
So, I guess everybody, it's your job. Go ahead, John, I'm not trying to interrupt.
No, you go ahead.
Well, everybody okay with the temporary to-go thing?
The what?
The temporary to-go bill?
We're pulling, the first letter we are pulling
Pulling,
completely.
yeah.
Because that's been requested on that. The second letter is in reference to the alcoholic beverages temporary to-go event permit in Class C per diem municipal. Nothing's really changed in regard to that. Of course, as everyone is aware, the third bill is the one that involved the concerns over a crown system. Their argument is the fact that it isn't so much the fact that it's crown itself, it's just that they're trying to establish a structure countywide where it will be, where the process will be available for businesses to sell, but still under the guidelines and the restrictions of the commission. So if we choose to approve the second and the third letter, That's not necessarily saying that we will advocate for Crown Sports Center, but we are just going to allow the process to continue and the, I guess you could say, enabling Wicomico County to follow through with that process under the guidance of the commission.
That allows
I'm
Crown.
not good with either. I mean, I wasn't good with the bills to begin with, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm against both, what was it?
All three.
They're all three.
Yeah, right.
I had a call today. I'm not, the to-go thing, I don't care for. I mean, I'm not gonna live or die with that one, but the Crown, the last one, I had a call today from a parent that, wanted to know what was going on with this. And, he said, it's just not the place for it. And apparently, I've been through these compliance, these compliance checks numerous times when I held a license in Wicomico County. And I went through them when I held a license in Worcester County too. Something that told me, when I looked at those numbers, 23 places got checked. One failed. Okay? Now, most of the time they'll do 10 or 15, maybe 20 places in the matter of a couple nights. They do this with a task force. They take people from different law enforcement agencies plus the compliance officer. What that told me, when they had 22 pass and one fail, that told me they had somebody very young buying alcohol for 22 places to pass, because most of the time, if they checked 10 or 15 places, they would have 2 or 3, maybe 4 fail. Because they try to pick somebody that looks like they're 21, but they're really 19. I was through that, and tells me that that was probably pretty obvious. I don't know what those numbers that fellow gave tonight, whether they were correct or not. The other thing about this place and we're going to use this word Crown because when the Liquor Licensing Board came in and was promoting this, that's who they used as an example. So I'm going to use them as an example. It's my understanding, I've not been there, but I've had 2 people tell me this. They don't have control of that liquor. The clerk does not have control of it. It's in a cooler like you go in a convenience store. So you can walk in and open the cooler up, clerk gets distracted. Now in this case they sold it, but a clerk gets distracted. Young people could go in, open the cooler door up, put it under their jacket and walk out. The problem, the concern the parent had today was about hiring referees and having folks in the stands having too much to drink and causing problems. So anyway, I'm for withdrawing that letter of support. That's where I'm at.
I'm not for any of the liquor bills.
My only concern with the to-go event thing is, I'll use the Folk Festival as an example. During that event, the Rotary Club here as a fundraiser, and I asked at the hearing what would happen if they passed this, and they said, well, that would go away. Obviously, because, so the question is, do we take money out of the nonprofits and put it in the cash registers of the local business, which is more important? I'm neither here nor there with the to-go. I mean, I'm okay with it. The event facility license, in light of what's happened with Crown recently, I can't be in favor of it. I'd like to see them go 12 months with no violations before it gets discussed again. And I know they're talking about should another facility be built. Well, I've asked around in the past few weeks, and the information I've been told is there's nothing in the pipeline.
Well, Worcester County's,
and then
Worcester's killed theirs, yeah.
Well, and then they presented that we would be competing with this $100 million sports complex that's being built in Worcester County. Well, then I find out it's not being built. So
This is just, taking one at a time, are we okay with the temporary to-go event? That's the second letter that I think we are.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Joe?
No, I'll go no on that.
Is Shani here?
She has not been here since we took the recent.
Okay. I'm in favor of it, so that would be 3-2 in favor of moving forward with that one. On the final bill, that is the one that involves the Crown. Something to note is that, again, this is enabling legislation. It's no different, I think, even though they bring Crown to the front and center, which we had agreed on initially. It's no different than what was shared with me is that some events that the Civic Center has. It's no different than what was at one point in time with similar to a license that Chuck E. Cheese had.
Well, I think there's a big
For
difference.
years, let me finish. For years, it was a license that Chuck E. Cheese has until they actually just they decided not to do it anymore. So this isn't just a bill to help Crown Sports Center sell liquor. It's a broader scope that they're trying to address with enabling legislation.
But the thing you got with the Civic Center, every time the Civic Center's got an event, they've got security, and most of the time, a couple deputies there.
Well, again,
On overtime.
yeah, well, the Board of,
They got 5 or 6 deputies.
I understand that, but that's what the Board of License Commissioners, that's their responsibility, is to make sure it is run efficiently. We're sort of just enabling it under the oversight of the commissioners.
They got 1.5 compliance officers. They're not overstaffed, so it's going to be hard for them to make sure they're doing right.
They're the ones recommending it.
Well, I know, and we know why, so.
I don't know why.
I know why.
I say it's an opportunity for the county to bring more money in. I think this is the Crown or whomever else would even go for it needs to do better, obviously. And maybe maybe there's something Chris Adams could add into the bill if they wanted to amend it for security or something like that. I don't know, but overall, I don't have any issue with it in general. But yeah, that's fine.
It's about the children, Josh.
How are we going to vote? Where are we? Joe?
I'm voting no support.
Josh?
I'm in support.
Shane?
No.
Jeff?
No.
And I would say yes, so that will be struck down by a 3-2 vote, okay? So the only letter that's going to be going up, Mrs. Hurley, is for the second bill of the three.
So the first one, the Sunday hunting, you're just repealing the times. I think you might have been getting that confused with the deer
Very confused.
management one that was withdrawn. This is actually repealing the Sunday hunting times. And again, we're just changing the number that's referenced in the letter of support from the bill draft number to the House bill number.
Okay, when you put repeal in there, I thought that meant that we were repealing this bill.
It's repealing the times on Sunday.
Page 148 in the brief.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I'd be fine with that one.
Okay, so we're okay with that? Joe? Josh?
Yeah.
No, Joe?
What are we doing? I'm sorry.
We're simply moving forward with the Sunday hunting, but they are repealing the times.
The time was, I think, 10:30. Hold on a second. Let's see if I have it. It was originally from 30 minutes before sunrise until 10:30 a.m., and they're looking to strike that.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have, that would be okay on a 3-2. You said no, Shane? Or you said yes?
I said I was fine with it.
On the deer?
hunting?
All right, so where are we? 4-1. 4-1 to move forward. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Early, because I was not aware of that. I thought it was just repealing, period. Great, excellent.
So we have the two letters that would go up with
Moving
the
forward.
new House bill numbers.
Exactly.
Pardon me?
Okay.
Exactly.
We would have the two letters that would be submitted with the new House bill numbers.
What's
Yes.
it do now?
It's the Sunday hunting, the repeal of the Sunday hunting, and the temporary to go.
To go.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. And you're going to tell them that we've withdrawn the other support?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to adjourn to go into closed work session.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.